The bullet tore through the bakery window at 6:47 a.m., shattering more than glass. Kalin Kovac watched from across the street as the woman he'd obsessed over for 8 months, Era, the baker with flour-dusted hands and a smile that didn't know his name, dropped behind the counter. His heart stopped. In that frozen moment, as smoke began to curl from the storefront and screams erupted, the heir to the city's most ruthless crime empire made a choice that would destroy everything his family had built. He stepped out of the shadows, and he would paint the streets red to keep her breathing. Welcome to a story of obsession, power, and impossible choices. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story reaches across the world. The Watcher. The first time Kalin Kovac saw Aramatsui, he was supposed to be killing someone. It was a Tuesday in March, the kind of gray morning that made the city look like it was still deciding whether to wake up or roll over and die. Kalin sat in the back of a black Mercedes 3 blocks from the harbor, waiting for Viktor Sokolov to emerge from his mistress's apartment building. The Glock 19 felt familiar against his ribs, a second heartbeat he'd carried since he was 16. His driver, Dmitry, smoked in silence up front, and the world outside continued its mundane rotation, unaware that in approximately 9 minutes, one of its inhabitants would cease to exist. Then she walked past. Kalin's eyes tracked her movement without conscious thought, a survival instinct honed by years of watching for threats. But she wasn't a threat. She was ordinary. Devastatingly, impossibly ordinary. Dark hair pulled into a messy bun, white sneakers that had seen better days, a canvas bag slung over her shoulder. She wore a light jacket against the morning chill, and when she passed under a streetlight, he caught the faint dusting of what looked like flour on her jeans. She was humming. He could hear it through the cracked window, some melody he didn't recognize, light and unburdened. She passed within 10 feet of a car containing 2 armed men planning murder, and she hummed like the world was a safe place, like monsters didn't exist. "Boss?" Dmitry's voice cut through his distraction. "Sokolov's moving." Kalin watched her turn the corner onto Fifth Avenue. "Change your plans, follow her." The hit gets postponed. Follow her. They trailed her for 6 blocks. She stopped at a bodega, emerged with a coffee. She helped an old woman carry groceries up a stoop. She stopped to pet a stray cat, crouching in her clean white sneakers on the dirty sidewalk without hesitation. And then she arrived at a small bakery wedged between a laundromat and a closed-down barber shop, Sunrise Breads. She unlocked the door and disappeared inside. Lights flickered on. Through the window, Kalin watched her tie on an apron, pull her hair back more securely, and begin her day. She moved through the small space with practiced efficiency, and even from across the street he could see her lips moving, still humming, still untouched by the weight that pressed down on everyone else in this godforsaken city. "Boss?" Dmitry ventured. "What are we doing?" Kalin didn't answer. He didn't know. Viktor Sokolov was executed 3 days later by someone else. Kalin's father, Alexei Kovac, said nothing about the postponement, which meant he knew everything. In the Kovac family, silence was its own language, and his father was fluent in 1,000 unspoken warnings. But Kalin returned to Fifth Avenue the next morning, and the morning after that. It became a ritual he couldn't explain and wouldn't defend. Every day he found a reason to be within sight of that bakery. Sometimes he sat in cars with tinted windows. Sometimes he lingered in the cafe across the street, hidden behind newspapers he didn't read. He learned her schedule like scripture. Arrived at 6:15 a.m., opened at 7, took her lunch break at 1:30 in the small park 2 blocks east, closed at 6 p.m., left by 6:45. He learned other things too. She wore the same rotation of 4 shirts under her apron. She always bought her coffee from the same bodega, black, 2 sugars. She spoke to the homeless man who camped outside the laundromat, sometimes bringing him day-old bread. On Thursdays, an older Asian woman visited the bakery, and they spoke in what Kalin eventually recognized as Japanese. Her mother, he assumed. She laughed easily. She never looked afraid. That last observation fascinated him most. In Kalin's world, everyone was afraid. Fear was the currency that bought loyalty, silence, submission. His father had built an empire on it, and Kalin was being groomed to inherit that throne of terror. But this woman, this baker who smelled like cinnamon and didn't know his name, She moved through the world like fear was a foreign concept. "You're getting reckless," his brother Mikhail told him one evening in their father's study. Mikhail was 2 years younger, but infinitely more pragmatic. He dealt in numbers and logistics, while Kalin handled the wet work. "The Rossi family is pushing territory on the south side. Father needs you focused." "I'm focused," Kalin said, which was true. He'd never been more focused in his life, just not on the things he was supposed to be. "Then why did I see you on Fifth Avenue for the third time this week? There's nothing for us there. No territory, no business, no threats. Unless—" Mikhail's eyes narrowed. "There's someone. Drop it." "Kalin, I said drop it." The edge in his voice could cut glass. Mikhail, wisely, dropped it. But his brother wasn't wrong. Kalin was getting reckless. 2 months in, he started going inside the bakery. The first time his hands shook. Kalin Kovac, who'd put bullets in 7 men's skulls before his 25th birthday, whose name made seasoned criminals cross themselves, stood outside a bakery with sweating palms like a schoolboy. Ridiculous. He was ridiculous. He went in anyway. The bell above the door chimed. She looked up from behind the counter, and for the first time he saw her eyes clearly, deep brown, warm, utterly unaware that she was looking at a devil. "Hi, welcome to Sunrise Breads. What can I get you?" Her voice matched her face, open, friendly, real. No calculation behind it, no angle. When was the last time someone had spoken to him without weighing their words for safety? "Coffee," he said. "Black." "You got it. Anything else? The cinnamon rolls just came out. They're still warm." He should have said no. Should have taken his coffee and left. Instead, one of those two. Smart choice. She smiled, and something in his chest constricted. For here or to go? To go. He paid cash. He always paid cash. She handed him his order in a small paper bag, her fingers brushing his for half a second. She didn't notice. He noticed everything, the small scar on her left index finger, the pale polish on her nails, the way her name tag read Ara in simple block letters. Ara. "Have a great day," she said, already turning to the next customer. He left, threw the cinnamon roll in the first trash can he passed, drank the coffee even though it burned his tongue, went home and put 3 rounds through the head of a man who'd been skimming from the family's gambling operations because he needed to remember who he was. But the next week, he went back. And the week after that. It became a careful dance. Never the same day of the week. Never the same time. Never lingering long enough to become memorable. He was a ghost in her life, present but invisible, watching her smile at strangers and hum while she worked and exist in a world so far removed from his that they might as well have lived on different planets. "Good morning," she'd say when he walked in, and he'd nod, order his coffee, pay leave. Sometimes she'd make small talk. "Crazy weather, right?" Or, "How's your week going?" And he'd give minimal responses. Polite but distant. A regular customer, nothing more. Except he was so much more, and she had no idea. He knew things about her now. Her full name was Ara Matsui. She'd worked at the bakery for 3 years. She rented a studio apartment 8 blocks away, above a bookstore. She had a best friend named Sophie who visited Tuesday evenings. She liked old movies. He'd seen her leaving a revival theater once. She wore her heart on her sleeve and her emotions on her face. And she was the most dangerous thing Kalin had ever encountered because she made him want things he'd stopped letting himself want years ago. Safety, simplicity, softness, a life. 4 months in, the situation with the Rossi family deteriorated from tense to critical. The Rossis controlled the east side of the city, gambling, prostitution, protection rackets. The Kovac empire had grown from the west side docks, dealing in smuggling, drugs, and enforcement. For 2 decades, an uneasy peace had held, with each family respecting established boundaries. That peace was dying. Small provocations at first. A Rossi crew member found beaten in Kovac territory, a shipment of Kovac heroin intercepted by Rossi soldiers. Then larger escalations. A Rossi lieutenant shot in his car, a Kovac warehouse burned to the ground. The city was a powder keg, and both families kept striking matches. Cullen's father called a family meeting in the estate's main hall, a room designed to intimidate with its vaulted ceilings and dark wood paneling. Alexei Kovac sat at the head of a long table, and even at 63, he radiated the kind of power that made strong men defer. Mikhail sat to his right, Kalin to his left. Four of their most trusted captains filled the remaining chairs. "The Rossis are testing us," Alexei said, his accented English carrying the weight of absolute authority. "They think we've grown soft. They think they can push into our territory without consequences. We will show them otherwise." "We could negotiate," Mikhail suggested carefully. "Find a diplomatic solution before this escalates into full war." "War is already here," one of the captains, Yuri, growled. "They killed 3 of our men last week." "And we've killed 5 of theirs," Mikhail countered. "Where does it end?" "It ends when they submit or die," Alexei said flatly. "Those are the only 2 endings to the story." His gaze shifted to Kalin. "You've been distracted lately." The room temperature seemed to drop. Everyone knew better than to be anything less than fully present when Alexei Kovac spoke. "I'm not distracted," Kalin said evenly. "No? Because I've had reports of you spending considerable time on Fifth Avenue, an area that holds no strategic value for us. An area where nothing happens except normal people living normal lives." Alexei leaned forward. "Please, explain to me what interests you there." So his father did know. Of course he did. Alexei Kovac knew everything that happened in his empire. "Reconnaissance," Kalin lied smoothly. "The Rossis have been moving product through that neighborhood. I've been tracking patterns." "Interesting. Because I have people tracking Rossi movements, and none of them have reported activity on Fifth Avenue." Alexei's eyes were chips of ice. "My son, I have built everything we have through focus and ruthlessness. Distractions get men killed. Weaknesses get empires destroyed. Whatever is pulling your attention away from this family, eliminate it. Am I clear?" "Crystal." "Good, because I have a solution to our Rossi problem, and it requires your complete commitment." Cullen felt the trap closing before his father even finished speaking. "Dante Rossi has a daughter," Alexei continued. "Valentina. 23. Educated, by all accounts a suitable match. Dante has suggested a marriage alliance. You marry into the Rossi family, uniting our empires. The war ends. We consolidate power. Together, we would control the entire city." The silence that followed was absolute. "You want me to marry a Rossi," Helen said slowly. "I want you to marry power, to marry peace, to marry the future of this family's dominance." Alexei's voice softened, which somehow made it more menacing. "You are 30 years old, Kalin. It's time to think beyond yourself. This is bigger than whatever fleeting distraction has caught your eye." Mikhail was studying his hands, staying carefully neutral. The captains looked anywhere but at Kalin. Everyone in the room understood what was happening. This wasn't a request. It was a command wrapped in the illusion of choice. "When?" Cullen asked. "You'll meet her next week. Dinner at Dante's estate. If things progress well, we'll announce the engagement within the month." Alexei stood, signaling the end of discussion. "This is how empires are built, my son. Not with bullets, but with bonds. You'll understand in time." Kalin left the meeting and drove straight to Fifth Avenue. It was 3 p.m. Ara would be behind the counter, probably dealing with the after-school rush of high school kids buying day-old pastries. He parked across the street and watched her through the window. She was laughing at something a teenage customer said, her whole face lighting up, and the distance between her world and his had never felt more insurmountable. His phone buzzed. "Dimitri, Father wants the Thompson crew handled tonight. All 4 of them. Clean." The Thompson crew had been selling information to the Rossis. Traitors. They'd die screaming. Colin texted back. "Understood." He looked at Ara one more time. She was wiping down the counter now, humming again, existing in her bubble of safety and normalcy and light. And he was going to spend his evening executing men, then go home and wash their blood off his hands, then wake up and do it all again until his father told him it was time to marry a woman he'd never met to end a war he hadn't started. This was his life. This was always going to be his life. He drove away. The Thompson crew died quickly, bullets to the back of the head, bodies disposed of in the harbor. Efficient, professional. Colin felt nothing during the executions, which had stopped bothering him years ago. Feeling nothing was safer than feeling everything. But that night, alone in his penthouse apartment overlooking the city, he poured a glass of whiskey and admitted something to himself. He was obsessed with Ara Matsui. Not infatuated, not merely attracted. Obsessed. She'd become the only bright spot in a life painted in shades of gray and red. She represented something he couldn't have and didn't deserve but wanted with an intensity that terrified him. And his father had just ordered him to bury that obsession under a marriage of convenience. The meeting with Valentina Rossi was exactly as awful as anticipated. She was beautiful in the way predators are beautiful, sleek and dangerous and calculating. She spoke 3 languages, held a degree in economics, and understood the family business well enough to discuss territory divisions over wine. She was perfect for him in every way that mattered to his father. Colin felt absolutely nothing. "You don't want this either," Valentina said midway through dinner, after their fathers had left them alone to get acquainted. Her directness caught him off guard. "Excuse me? This marriage. You're going through the motions, but your heart isn't in it. Don't worry. Neither is mine." She sipped her wine. "I have someone. A lawyer. My father would never approve, obviously. But I assume you also have complications?" Colin considered lying, then decided against it. "Something like that." "Well, then we understand each other. We'll play the game, make the alliance, and live our separate lives like every other arranged marriage in our world." She raised her glass. "To convenient arrangements and inconvenient hearts." He clinked glasses with her, appreciating her pragmatism even as he recognized the cage being built around him. The engagement was announced 2 weeks later. The city's underworld erupted in speculation. The Kovacs-Rossi alliance would reshape power dynamics across every criminal enterprise from the docks to the Diamond District. Smaller organizations scrambled to figure out where they'd fit in the new order. Some celebrated the coming peace. Others mourned the end of opportunities that only existed in chaos. Colin continued his visits to Fifth Avenue, but less frequently now. Every time he walked through that bakery door, he felt like a thief stealing moments from a life he couldn't have. "The usual?" Ara asked one morning in May, 6 months after he'd first seen her. "Please." She prepared his coffee with practiced efficiency. "Big plans for the weekend?" "Not particularly. You?" "Oh, the usual excitement, laundry, groceries, maybe a movie if I'm feeling wild." She grinned. "Living the dream." He almost smiled. Almost. "Sounds perfect." "Really? Most people think my life is pretty boring." "Most people are idiots," he thought. "You have everything." "Boring is underrated," he said instead. She handed him his coffee. "You've been coming here for months, and I just realized I don't know your name." His heart stopped. This was dangerous. Names created connections. Connections created vulnerability. He should have given her a fake name, should have kept the wall between them intact. "Colin," he said. "Nice to officially meet you, Colin. I'm Ara, but you probably already knew that from the name tag." She was still smiling, still treating this like a normal interaction between a customer and a barista, unaware that she'd just crossed a line he'd carefully maintained. "Nice to meet you too," he managed. He left before he could do anything stupid. Like stay, like talk, like pretend he was someone who could belong in her world. That night, he dreamed of the bakery burning. He woke up at 3 a.m., heart pounding, the dream so vivid he could still smell smoke. Ara had been inside, screaming his name, and he couldn't reach her. The flames kept growing, and he kept running, and she kept screaming, and... His phone rang. Mikhail. "We have a problem," his brother said without preamble. "Someone hit one of Dante's clubs. 3 dead, including Valentina's cousin. The Rossis think it's us." "It's not us." "I know that. Father knows that. But Dante is demanding blood. He thinks we're sabotaging the alliance." Kalen threw off the covers, already reaching for his clothes. "Who actually did it?" "We're not sure yet. Could be the Yakuza trying to start a war between us. Could be one of the smaller families making a power play. Could be someone with a grudge. But Dante doesn't care about logic right now. He's out for revenge." "Where's Father?" "Trying to negotiate. But Colin..." Mikhail hesitated. There's talk of calling off the engagement, of the alliance falling apart. If that happens, we're looking at full-scale war, streets running red, every family choosing sides. It'll be a bloodbath. Colin processed this while buttoning his shirt. Part of him, a small, shameful part, felt relief at the idea of the engagement ending. The rest of him understood the implications. War would consume everything. Territory disputes would escalate. Innocent people would die in the crossfire. People like Ara. "Tell father I'm on my way," he said. "And Mikhail? Double our security. All our people, all our locations. If someone's playing games, I want to make sure they can't hit us while we're distracted." He hung up and stood in his dark apartment, thinking about the dream, about flames and screaming, about how his two worlds, the one he lived in and the one he watched from a distance, were about to collide in the worst possible way. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in controlled chaos. Alexei and Dante met repeatedly, each bringing armed escorts, each accusing the other of betrayal. Evidence was demanded, loyalty was questioned. The alliance teetered on a knife's edge while both families investigated who'd actually hit the Rossi Club. The truth, when it emerged, was worse than anyone anticipated. It was an inside job. A Rossi captain named Marco Santelli, furious at being passed over for promotion, had staged the hit to make it look like a Kovac attack. He'd planned to use the resulting war to seize power in the chaos. He was found in pieces scattered across 3 dumpsters in Rossi territory. Dante's way of apologizing. The alliance held, barely. But the damage was done. Trust between the families was fractured. Everyone was paranoid, seeing betrayal in every shadow. The wedding was pushed back indefinitely while tempers cooled. And then Callan made the mistake that changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning in June. He'd spent the previous night overseeing a shipment from the docks. 30 kilos of cocaine that needed to be distributed to 4 different networks before dawn. He was exhausted, running on 3 hours of sleep and black coffee, his edges frayed in a way that made him sloppy. He went to the bakery anyway. He shouldn't have. He knew better. But he needed to see her, needed one glimpse of normalcy before diving back into the endless violence of his life. Ara was behind the counter, as always, but today something was different. Her smile seemed forced, her movements were stiff, and when she looked up and saw him, something flashed in her eyes. Fear. "Hi," she said, and her voice was too bright. Fake. "The usual? What's wrong?" The question was out before he could stop it, before he could remember that he wasn't supposed to care, wasn't supposed to notice. "Nothing. Everything's fine. Just had a weird morning." She poured his coffee with shaking hands. "Ara?" He said her name for the first time, and she looked at him, really looked at him, and he saw it then. A bruise forming on her left cheekbone, poorly covered with makeup. Everything went red. "Who hurt you?" "I'm fine, really. I just..." "Who?" "Hurt. You." She flinched at his tone, and he immediately hated himself. He was scaring her. He was doing exactly what he'd sworn never to do, bringing his darkness into her light. "Sorry," he forced himself to say quietly. "I didn't mean to. Are you okay?" She hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "My ex-boyfriend showed up this morning, before we opened. He wanted money. When I said no, we struggled, and he pushed me. I hit the counter, but he's gone now, so it's fine." "Where did he go?" "I don't know. Look, it's not a big deal. He's just going through a rough time, and..." "What's his name?" "Kaylin, please, just drop it. I'm handling it." But he couldn't drop it. Wouldn't. Because in that moment, standing in a bakery at 7 a.m. with flour dust hanging in the air and sunlight streaming through windows, Kalin Kovac made a choice. Maybe the first real choice he'd made in years. He stepped out of the shadows. "Give me his name," he said quietly. "I'll make sure he never bothers you again." "You don't have to..." "His name, Ara." Something in his voice must have convinced her because she told him, Derek Paulson." Kalin nodded once, committed the name to memory, and left without his coffee. By sunset, Derek Paulson had both arms broken in 3 places, and a very clear understanding that if he ever went within 5 blocks of Aramatsui again, what remained of him would be fed to the harbor. Kalin didn't tell Ara what he'd done. Didn't need to. Derek disappeared from her life completely, and she never asked questions, which meant some part of her understood. Some part of her knew that the quiet customer who ordered black coffee had done something terrible on her behalf. He waited for her to be afraid of him, waited for her to stop smiling when he walked in, to call the police, to recognize him for what he was. Instead, the next time he visited, she said, "Thank you." Just that. 2 words, but they landed like an earthquake. "For what?" he asked carefully. "For whatever you did. Derek left me alone. I know you had something to do with it." She met his eyes. "I don't know who you are, Kaylin. Not really, but I know you helped me when you didn't have to. So, thank you." He should have denied it, should have maintained distance. Instead, "You're welcome." And then because he was apparently committed to self-destruction. "When do you get off work?" She blinked. 6:30. "Why?" "Let me take you to dinner." "Like, date?" "Yes, like a date." She studied him for a long moment, and he wondered what she saw. Did she see the monster, the killer, the heir to an empire built on blood? Or did she just see a man who'd been watching her for 8 months like a starving man watches bread? "Okay," she said finally. "Yes, I'd like that." His phone buzzed. "Mikhail, urgency meeting. Father's calling everyone in, now." Colin looked at the message, then at Ara, then made another choice. "I'll pick you up at 7, he said, and turned off his phone. The restaurant Colin chose was small and anonymous, tucked away in a neighborhood that belonged to neither the Kovach nor Rossi families. Neutral ground, safe ground. He arrived 15 minutes early and sat facing the door, a habit so ingrained he couldn't break it even when he wanted to. His phone remained off, sitting heavy in his pocket like a loaded gun. 23 missed calls by now, probably. Maybe more. Ara walked in at 7:05 wearing a simple blue dress and the same white sneakers from that first morning. She'd left her hair down, and it fell past her shoulders in dark waves. No jewelry except small silver earrings. No armor, no calculation, no pretense. She was exactly herself, and the sight of her made his chest tighten. "Sorry I'm late," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "The bus was delayed and I—" "You took the bus?" "Well, yeah. How else would I get here?" "I should have picked you up." "From where?" "You don't know where I live." She grinned. "Kinda hard to pick someone up when you're basically strangers who occasionally exchange coffee and mysterious favors." Fair point. They were strangers. He knew everything about her schedule and nothing about her actual life. The realization made him feel like exactly what he was, a stalker who'd somehow lucked into a date. "Tell me about yourself," he said, because that's what normal people did on dates. They asked questions. They learned about each other through conversation instead of surveillance. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." She laughed. "That's a lot. How about we start small? What do you do, Kaylin?" The question he'd been dreading. He'd prepared an answer, rehearsed it. Import-export business, family company, mostly logistics and shipping. Not technically a lie. They did import and export, just not legal goods. "Sounds boring," she said. "It is. First truth of the night. Then why do you do it?" "Family obligation. My father built the business. I'm expected to continue it." "Expected by who?" "Everyone." She tilted her head, studying him with those impossibly open eyes. "That sounds lonely." No one had ever said that to him before. People called him powerful, dangerous, ruthless, cold. Never lonely. But she'd looked at him for 30 seconds and seen straight through to the truth. "Your turn," he said, deflecting. "Tell me about the bakery." "Not much to tell. I started working there when I was 20. The owner, Mrs. Chen, is the sweetest woman alive, but terrible at business. I basically run the place now. She keeps saying she'll retire and leave it to me, but I think she's too stubborn to actually quit." Otto's face lit up when she talked about it. "I love it, though. I love the early mornings, the smell of fresh bread, the regulars who come in. There's this one guy who's been ordering black coffee for months and barely says 3 words, and I just found out his name is Colin." He almost smiled. Almost. He sounds terrible at conversation. The worst. But he tips well and he has kind eyes, so I forgive him. Kind eyes. If she knew the things those eyes had watched, the violence they'd witnessed without flinching, she'd run screaming. The waiter came. Ara ordered pasta and asked questions about the wine list with genuine curiosity. Colin ordered whatever she was having and watched her navigate the menu like it was an adventure. When the food arrived, she talked about her mother, the woman he'd seen visiting on Thursdays, who'd emigrated from Japan 30 years ago and still made traditional dishes every Sunday. About her friend Sophie, who wanted Ara to quit the bakery and go to culinary school. About the stray cat she'd been feeding, who finally let her pet him last week. She talked about normal things, civilian things, and Kaelin absorbed every word like a man dying of thirst. "You're quiet," she observed halfway through dinner. "Am I talking too much?" "No. I like listening to you." "Well, that's good because I apparently can't shut up." She twirled pasta around her fork. "But seriously, you've barely told me anything about yourself. Family business, fine. But what do you like? What do you do when you're not working?" What did he do? He killed people. He managed criminal enterprises. He attended meetings where men decided other men's fates. He went to bed alone and woke up alone and existed in a world where trust was suicide and love was weakness. "I don't have much free time," he said carefully. "Everyone has free time? What do you do with yours?" "Lately, I get coffee at a bakery on Fifth Avenue." She blushed. Actually blushed, color rising in her cheeks and something in his chest cracked open. "That's really sweet," she said softly. "It's pathetic." "No, it's not. It's, She paused, choosing her words. "I noticed, you coming in. At first I thought you just lived nearby, but then I realized you showed up at weird times, different days, like you were going out of your way. I thought maybe you really liked our coffee, or maybe you were just lonely, or maybe—" She met his eyes. "Maybe you wanted to see me." "All of the above," he admitted, "but mostly the last one." "Why didn't you ever say anything? Why just order coffee and leave?" "Because I'm a coward. Because you deserve better than a monster. Because talking to you would make you real, and if you're real, I'll want things I can't have." "Didn't think you'd be interested," he said instead. "In you? Kaelin, you're gorgeous and mysterious, and you look at me like I'm the only person in the room." "Of course I'm interested." She said it so simply, like it was obvious, like his appeal wasn't completely manufactured by money and violence and fear. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Still off, but he could feel it vibrating. Someone was trying to reach him. Probably Mikhail, probably urgent, probably about the meeting he'd skipped. He ignored it. "Tell me something true," Ara said suddenly. "Something real. I feel like I'm talking to a ghost who's only half here." She had no idea how accurate that metaphor was. "What do you want to know?" "Something that matters to you. Something that keeps you up at night." "You. You keep me up at night. The thought of something happening to you. The knowledge that I'm falling for someone I can never truly have because my world would eat her alive. I'm afraid," he said quietly, "that I'm becoming my father." Her expression softened. "Why is that scary?" "Because my father is a hard man, cold. He built everything we have through ruthlessness and calculation. He doesn't believe in weakness or sentiment or—" He gestured vaguely. "This. Sitting in a restaurant with someone who makes him feel human." "You feel human to me," Ara said. "Damaged maybe, guarded definitely, but human. You don't know me." "Then let me know you." She reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of his. Not touching, just offering. "I know you're someone important in your family business. I know you carry yourself like you're used to people being afraid of you. I know you did something to Derek that terrified him into leaving the city. I'm not an idiot, Kaelin. I know you're probably not a good man by most definitions." His blood went cold. "And you're still here?" "I'm still here. Because I also know you've been coming to my bakery for months without causing problems. I know you helped me when you didn't have to. I know you look at me like I'm precious instead of disposable. So yeah, maybe you're dangerous. Maybe you've done terrible things. But you've never been terrible to me, and I'd like to know why." No one had ever asked him that before. "Why do you choose kindness? Why do you hold back? Why aren't you the monster everyone expects? Because you're good, he said finally, and good things should be protected, not destroyed. I'm not a thing, I'm a person, and I don't need protecting, I need honesty. She finally closed the distance, her fingers brushing his. Her touch was warm, real, devastating. So be honest with me. Are you dangerous? Yes. Would you hurt me? Never. Then that's all I need to know right now. She squeezed his hand. Everything else we can figure out as we go. They left the restaurant at 9:30. Kalin insisted on driving her home, and Ara didn't argue. The drive took 12 minutes, and they spent it in comfortable silence, her hand still touching his over the center console. When he pulled up outside her building, she turned to him. Do you want to come up? Just for coffee, I mean. Real coffee, not bakery coffee. Every instinct screamed at him to say no, to maintain distance, to remember that his phone had 23, now 31, missed calls waiting, to remember who he was and what he did and why this could never work. Yes, he said. Her apartment was exactly what he'd expected. Small, tidy, full of light even at night, books everywhere, plants on the windowsill, a worn couch that had seen better days, photos on the walls, her mother, friends, places she'd traveled. A life lived fully in the open, nothing hidden, nothing dark lurking in corners. She made coffee while he stood awkwardly in her living room, trying not to catalog escape routes and sightlines like he normally would. You can sit, she called from the kitchen. I promise the furniture doesn't bite. He sat on the couch. She joined him with 2 mugs, curling up beside him with her legs tucked under her. The proximity was intoxicating. He could smell her shampoo, something floral and clean. Thank you for tonight, she said. I had fun, even though I'm terrible at conversation. Especially because of that. It's refreshing, honestly. Most guys won't shut up about themselves. You're like pulling teeth, but in an interesting way. I'll try to be more forthcoming. Don't try too hard. I like the mystery. She sipped her coffee. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why me? You could probably have anyone you wanted. So why show up at a random bakery every week to see someone completely ordinary? You're not ordinary. I'm a 26-year-old baker who lives in a studio apartment and watches old movies alone on Friday nights. I'm the definition of ordinary. You're kind, he said. You're genuine. You exist in the world like it's safe, like people are fundamentally good, like tomorrow is guaranteed. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How impossible? It's called optimism. Most people have it. No, they don't. Most people are scared or jaded or just going through the motions. But you... He stopped, searching for words. You hum while you work. You help strangers carry groceries. You feed stray cats. You live like the world is beautiful instead of brutal. And I've been watching you do it for 8 months, and it never stops amazing me. She was quiet for a long moment. 8 months? Shit, he'd said too much. That's when I first saw you, he admitted. March. You walked past my car humming, and I couldn't look away. That's when you started coming to the bakery 8 months ago? Yes. So all this time you've been... She trailed off, processing. Were you stalking me? Yes. No point lying now. I was watching you, learning your routine. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't stop. You became the only good thing in my life, and I was selfish enough to keep coming back even though I had no right to be anywhere near you. He waited for her to throw him out, to call him a creep, to realize that she'd invited a monster into her home. Instead, she said, that should probably scare me more than it does. It should terrify you. Well, it doesn't. Maybe I'm stupid. Or maybe... She set down her coffee and shifted closer. Maybe I've noticed you too. The quiet guy who shows up at weird times and always looks like he's carrying the weight of the world. The one with sad eyes and careful hands who never asks for anything except black coffee and a cinnamon roll he throws away. You knew about that? I see you from the window sometimes. You take the bag and dump it in the first trash can. Every time. I always wondered why you ordered it if you weren't going to eat it. I ordered it to talk to you for 30 more seconds. Her breath caught. Cullen, I should go, he said abruptly, standing. This was too much. too fast. He was revealing too much, wanting too much, and when she inevitably realized what he really was, it would destroy him. Don't. She stood too, close enough that he could count her heartbeats. Don't run away. Not now. Ada, you don't understand. My life is complicated, dangerous. There are things I can't tell you, things you're better off not knowing. And if you get close to me, let me decide what I'm better off not knowing. Her hand found his chest, palm flat over his racing heart. I'm not some fragile thing that'll shatter at the first sign of difficulty. I'm tougher than you think. It's not about tough, it's about safe. Being near me puts a target on your back. From who? The import-export business? She raised an eyebrow. Kellen, I'm not stupid. I know you're involved in something bad. I don't need details, but I need you to stop treating me like I can't make my own choices. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. So unless you don't want me, stop pushing me away for my own good. Want her? He wanted her like oxygen, like gravity, like the only light in an endless darkness. I want you, he said, roughly. I want you so much it scares me. Then stay. So he stayed. They talked until midnight, curled up on her couch like normal people on a normal date. She told him about learning to bake from Mrs. Chen, about her father who died when she was 12, about her dreams of maybe opening her own place someday. He told her carefully edited versions of his life, growing up in his father's shadow, the pressure of family expectations, the isolation of never being able to trust anyone. Not the whole truth, but pieces of it, enough to feel real. At 12:15, he forced himself to leave before he did something stupid like kiss her. She walked him to the door, and when he turned to say goodbye, she rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his cheek. Same time next week? She asked. I'll be at the bakery tomorrow. That's not what I meant. I meant dinner, a real date, where we both talk and neither of us runs away. I'm not running. You're literally walking out the door. He almost smiled, almost. Next week, dinner. I'll pick you up. It's a date. He left before he could change his mind, before he could pull her close and kiss her properly, and forget every reason this was a terrible idea. His phone came back to life the moment he started his car, immediately buzzing with notifications. 47 missed calls, 16 voicemails, 32 text messages. The most recent was from his father, sent 2 hours ago. Where are you? We need to talk. Tonight. Colleen drove to the family estate, a sprawling property in the hills overlooking the city. The gate guards waved him through without comment, but their expression said everything. You're in trouble. Big trouble. Alexei was waiting in his study, standing by the window with a glass of vodka in hand. Mikhail sat in one of the leather chairs, looking exhausted. Two of the captains, Yuri and Pavel, flanked the door. The setup screamed ambush. You turned off your phone, Alexei said without turning around. Not a question, an accusation. I was busy. Busy. Alexei turned then, and his expression could freeze hell. Do you know what happened while you were busy, my son? The Rossi family called an emergency meeting. They wanted to discuss concerns about your commitment to the alliance. And I, your father, had to stand there and make excuses for why my heir, the man who is supposed to marry into their family and unite our empires, was unreachable for 4 hours. I'm here now. That's not the point. Alexei's voice cracked like a whip. The point is loyalty, responsibility. You don't get to disappear when you feel like it. You don't get to prioritize personal desires over family obligations, not in this life, not in this business. I had one dinner. One dinner that could have cost us the alliance. One dinner while the Rossis were questioning whether you're serious about marrying Valentina. Alexei took 3 steps forward, close enough that Kalin could smell the vodka on his breath. Where were you? Who were you with? Kalin said nothing. Answer me. A friend. You don't have friends. You have associates and employees and family. That's all people like us get. Alexei's eyes narrowed. This friend, it's a woman, isn't it? The one you've been seeing on 5th Avenue. Mikhail shifted uncomfortably. The captains kept their gazes fixed on the floor. Her name is irrelevant, Kalin said carefully. Her name is everything, because if you're jeopardizing our alliance, our family's future, for some woman, then I need to know who she is so I can remove the problem. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. You won't touch her, Colleen said quietly, dangerously. Excuse me? She's innocent, civilian, nothing to do with our business. You won't touch her. Alexei stared at him, and for the first time in Kallen's memory, his father looked genuinely shocked. You're threatening me? Over a woman? I'm telling you she's off limits. Off limits. Alexei laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You think you can draw lines with me? Set boundaries? I made you, boy. I built everything you have, and I can take it all away. He stepped closer. You will marry Valentina Rossi. You will end this foolish distraction with whoever this woman is. And you will remember that in our world, love is a luxury we cannot afford. Do you understand? Kallen held his father's gaze. I understand perfectly. Good. Because if you can't be trusted to prioritize family, I'll find someone who can. Mikhail has been looking quite capable lately. Mikhail flinched at the threat, but said nothing. Alexei kept his eyes locked on Colin, waiting for submission. Are we done? Colin asked. We're done when I say we're done. And right now I'm saying this. You have 2 weeks to figure out how to balance your responsibilities. 2 weeks to prove you're committed to this family and this alliance. After that, if I hear about you disappearing again, if I hear about you seeing this woman again, I will handle it myself. And you won't like how I handle problems. The dismissal was clear. Colin turned to leave. One more thing, Alexei called. Dante wants to accelerate the wedding. He thinks a public commitment will stabilize the alliance. I agreed. You'll marry Valentina in 3 months. Colin stopped but didn't turn around. 3 months? Yes. Save the date. Alexei's voice dripped sarcasm. And Colin? If you care about this woman at all, you'll stay away from her, because the moment she becomes connected to you in any official capacity, she becomes fair game for our enemies. And we have a lot of enemies. Colin left without another word. He drove aimlessly for an hour, trying to process what had just happened. His father had essentially given him an ultimatum. The family or Ara. The alliance or his own happiness. The empire or love. But it wasn't really a choice, was it? Because Alexei was right about one thing. Being connected to Colin made Ara a target. Every rival family, every enemy with a grudge, every opportunist looking for leverage would see her as a weakness to exploit. They'd use her to hurt him, control him, destroy him. The smart move was to walk away, cut ties, let her live her normal life while he married Valentina and played his role in the family business. It was the only way to keep her safe. But when he closed his eyes, all he could see was her smile. All he could hear was her laugh. All he could feel was her hand in his, warm and real and right. He drove to Fifth Avenue. It was 2 a.m. The bakery was dark, the street empty. He sat across from it in his car, staring at the place where she spent her days creating something beautiful out of flour and sugar and patience, where she hummed and smiled and existed in blissful ignorance of the war brewing around her. His phone buzzed. Mikhail. I'm sorry, Father's under a lot of pressure. He didn't mean what he said about hurting her. Colin typed back. Yes, he did. He always means what he says. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. What are you going to do? Good question. What was he going to do? The answer came not from logic or strategy, but from somewhere deeper, somewhere honest. I'm going to protect her, he typed, no matter what it costs. Because that's what you did for the people you loved, wasn't it? You protected them, even from yourself, even when it meant giving up everything else. He drove home and spent the rest of the night planning. The next morning, Kaylin walked into Sunrise Breads at 7:15. Ara was behind the counter, and when she saw him, her whole face lit up. Good morning. You're late today. I was starting to think you forgot about me. If only. His life would be infinitely simpler if he could forget about Ara Matsui. Could never forget you, he said, and watched her blush. Smooth. The usual? Actually, can we talk in private? Her smile faded slightly. That sounds ominous. It's important. She glanced around the empty bakery, then called toward the back. Mrs. Chen, can you cover the front for a few minutes? An elderly Chinese woman emerged, took one look at Kaylin, and smirked knowingly. Take your time, dear. Young love shouldn't be rushed. They stepped outside. The morning was cool, the street still waking up. Cullen guided her a few steps away from the storefront, positioning himself so he could watch both directions. Old habits. What's wrong? Ara asked. You look like you're about to deliver bad news. I need to be honest with you about something. Okay. My family business isn't exactly legal, and I'm not just involved. I'm second in command. When my father retires, I'll run everything. He watched her face carefully. I'm a criminal, Ara. Not in a white-collar tax evasion way. In a people-get-hurt way. And there are other families like mine, and right now we're on the edge of a war that could turn this city into a battlefield. She absorbed this quietly. Is that what happened to Derek? Derek got off easy because he only hit you once. If he'd done worse... Cullen let the implication hang. I see. She crossed her arms, not defensive, but processing. And you're telling me this why? To scare me off? To give you the choice I never gave you before. I've been watching you for months, pursuing you, all while keeping you in the dark about who I really am. That wasn't fair. So now you know. And you get to decide if this, he gestured between them, is something you want to continue, knowing what you know. Are you going to hurt me? No. Are you going to hurt innocent people? He paused. Honesty meant honesty. I try not to. But I can't promise I'll never be in a situation where someone innocent gets caught in crossfire. But you don't target them. You're not out there randomly hurting people for fun. No. Everything I do is business, necessary, controlled. Necessary violence, she repeated. That's a hell of a thing to wrap my head around before 8 a.m. I know, and if you want to walk away, I'll understand. I'll disappear from your life completely. You'll be safe, normal, free of all this. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at the sidewalk. When she finally looked up, her eyes were clear. Can I ask you something? Anything. If you weren't in this life, if you were just a normal guy with a normal job, would you still want me? The question surprised him. Yes. Absolutely. Then here's what I think. She stepped closer. I think you're trying to protect me by pushing me away. I think you're scared something will happen to me because of who you are. And I appreciate that. But Colin, I'm already involved. You helped me with Derek. You've been part of my life for months. Walking away now doesn't erase that. It just means we both end up alone and miserable for no good reason. Being with me puts you in danger. Living puts me in danger. I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Life doesn't come with guarantees. She took his hand. Look, I'm not naive. I know this is complicated and messy and probably a terrible idea, but I also know that I haven't stopped thinking about you since our date, that you make me feel seen and protected and wanted in a good way. And I don't want to give that up just because your life is unconventional. Unconventional is an understatement. Fine, because your life is criminal and dangerous and involves people who might want to hurt me to get to you. Better? More accurate. Well, I'm still staying, unless you don't want me to. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her, breathing in her scent. She fit against him perfectly, her head tucked under his chin, her hands fisted in his jacket. I want you to, he said quietly. More than anything. But I need you to understand something. If we do this, if we're together, I will protect you with everything I have. But that might mean making decisions you don't like. It might mean keeping things from you for your own safety. Can you live with that? She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Can you live with me asking questions anyway? Despite everything, he almost smiled. Probably not. Then we'll figure it out as we go. She kissed him then, soft and sweet and tasting like cinnamon sugar. And for just a moment, Kalin Kovac let himself believe that maybe, somehow, this could work. The moment shattered when his phone rang. He almost ignored it. Almost. But old habits and family obligations pulled him back to reality. He checked the screen. Dmitri. I have to take this, he told Ara. Go ahead. He stepped away, pressing the phone to his ear. What? Boss, we have a problem. Dmitri's voice was tight with stress. The Rossies just hit one of our shipping warehouses. 3 of our guys are dead, and they torched the whole building. Cullen's blood ran cold. When? 20 minutes ago. Your father's calling everyone in. He wants retaliation. Now. I'm on my way. He hung up and turned to Ara, who was watching him with concern. You have to go, she said. Not a question. Yes, I'm sorry. Don't be. I meant what I said. I understand this is your life. She squeezed his hand once. Be careful. He kissed her forehead, then forced himself to walk away, to get in his car, to drive toward violence and away from the only peace he'd ever known. The war had begun, and Aramatsui, whether she knew it or not, was already caught in the crossfire. The warehouse was still smoldering when Kalen arrived. Black smoke curled into the gray morning sky like fingers reaching for something they'd never touch. Fire trucks lined the street, but the firefighters had already given up trying to save the structure. Now they just kept it from spreading to neighboring buildings. Police tape cordoned off the area, but the cops were keeping their distance. They knew whose warehouse this was. They knew better than to ask too many questions. Cullen ducked under the tape and found his father standing 50 feet from the ruins, flanked by Yuri and Pavel. Alexei's face was carved from stone, but his eyes burned with a fury that made the warehouse fire look tame by comparison. 3 men, Alexei said without preamble. Victor, Sergei, and young Anatoly. They never had a chance. The Rossies came in through the back entrance at shift change, when security was lightest. Professional, coordinated. A message. What did we lose besides the men? 2 million in product, another 3 in equipment and property. Alexei's jaw clenched. But that's not the point. The point is Dante Rossi just declared war, and he did it by killing our people on our territory. Mikhail appeared from around the corner, his suit smudged with ash. I talked to the fire marshal. Accelerant was used, gasoline probably. They wanted it to burn hot and fast. No survivors, no evidence. We need to hit them back, Yuri growled. Hard. Make them remember why they don't fuck with the Kovac family. Agreed, Pavel added. We look weak if we don't respond. Kalin studied the smoking ruins, his mind already calculating angles and consequences. This doesn't make sense. Dante agreed to the alliance. He's pushing for the wedding to happen faster. Why would he authorize an attack that undermines everything he's been working toward? Maybe he's testing us, Mikhail suggested, seeing how we respond to aggression even after agreeing to peace. Or maybe he never intended to honor the alliance, Yuri said. Maybe the marriage was always a trap to make us lower our guard. Alexei raised a hand, silencing them. It doesn't matter what Dante's intentions are. What matters is how we respond. And we will respond, but carefully, strategically. His gaze shifted to Kalen. I want you to handle this personally. Choose a target, something that hurts them as much as they hurt us. Make it clean, make it precise, and make it today. The order was clear, retaliation, blood for blood, the currency their world understood best. I'll need a few hours to gather intelligence, Cullen said. Find out which of their operations are vulnerable. You have until sunset. After that, I'm sending someone else, and they won't be as careful as you. Alexei turned back to the ruins. This alliance is hanging by a thread. One more incident like this, and we're looking at total war. So whatever you do, make it count. Cullen spent the next 6 hours coordinating with his network of informants and soldiers. The Rossi family had dozens of operations across the city. Gambling dens, strip clubs, protection rackets, drug distribution points, but most were too public, too visible. Hitting them would draw police attention neither family wanted. What he needed was something equivalent to the warehouse, a high-value target with minimal civilian exposure, a message that would sting but not escalate into total chaos. By noon, he'd found it, a Rossi money-counting house in the industrial district. Every Thursday, cash from their various enterprises flowed through that location before being laundered and distributed. Security would be tight, but not impossible. 6 guards, maybe 8. No civilians. Clean in, clean out. You're sure about this? Mikhail asked when Kalin outlined the plan. They were in Kalin's apartment, maps and surveillance photos spread across the dining table. It's the best option. We hit the money, we hurt them financially without killing anyone unnecessarily. Father wants blood. Father wants results. If we can send a message without starting a massacre, we should. Kellen marked positions on the building schematic. I'll take Dmitri and 4 others. We go in quiet, neutralize the guards, destroy the money, and leave. In and out in 15 minutes. And if something goes wrong, then we adapt. But it won't go wrong. I've planned this down to the second. Mikhail studied him with an expression Kellen couldn't quite read. You've changed. A few months ago, you would have suggested killing everyone and burning the place to the ground. A few months ago, I didn't have anything to lose. The woman from Fifth Avenue, she's making you soft. She's making me think clearly, Kalen corrected. There's a difference between ruthlessness and recklessness. We can hurt the Rossis without turning this into a bloodbath that destroys half the city. Father won't see it that way. Father doesn't need to know the details. He wants a message sent. I'll send it. At 3 o'clock, Kalen assembled his team in a safe house on the south side. Dmitri, as always, would drive. The other 4, Anton, Boris, Grigory, and Maxim, were experienced soldiers who knew how to follow orders without asking unnecessary questions. This is a precision operation, Kalen told them, checking his Glock and sliding it into his shoulder holster. We're not there to start a war. We're there to deliver a message. That means minimal casualties. We incapacitate guards, destroy the money, and leave. Anyone who can avoid pulling a trigger should avoid pulling a trigger. Understood? They nodded, loading their own weapons with practiced efficiency. What if they fight back? Anton asked. Then you defend yourself, but I want everyone to remember, every body we leave behind is ammunition for escalation. The goal is to hurt them without giving them justification for total retaliation. Since when do the Kovac family worry about justification? Grigory muttered. Since now. Questions? No one spoke. Good. We move in 20 minutes. The money house was a squat brick building wedged between an abandoned textile factory and a chop shop that probably also belonged to the Rossis. Evening shift had just started, which meant the day's collections would be inside, waiting to be processed and moved. Millions of dollars in cash, all in one convenient location. They approached from 3 directions. Kalin and Dmitri took the front entrance. Anton and Boris covered the back. Grigory and Maxim secured the perimeter and kept watch for unexpected complications. The first guard was smoking by the side door, his attention on his phone. Kalin moved like a shadow, closing the distance in seconds. A hand over the mouth, a knee to the kidney, and the guard crumpled without making a sound. They zip-tied his hands and feet, gagged him, and left him behind a dumpster. 1 down, 7 to go. The front entrance was locked, but Dmitri had the door open in 40 seconds. They slipped inside, weapons drawn, moving through the narrow hallway with the coordination of men who'd done this 100 times before. Voices echoed from deeper in the building, casual conversation, laughter. The guards didn't know death was coming. Cullen raised his fist, signaling a stop. 2 guards ahead, sitting at a makeshift security desk, watching football on a small television. He gestured to Dmitri, who nodded and moved right while Cullen went left. They came at the guards from both sides simultaneously. Dmitri's target went down with a choked grunt. Cullen's tried to shout a warning, but Cullen's hand was already clamping over his mouth, the suppressed pistol pressed against his temple. Quiet, Cullen whispered. And you live. The guard froze, terror flooding his eyes. Smart man. They secured both guards and continued deeper into the building. The money counting room was exactly where intelligence said it would be. A large space on the second floor with reinforced doors and small windows. 4 more guards inside, along with 2 accountants running bills through counting machines. This was the tricky part. Kalen positioned his team at both entrances to the room. On his signal, they'd breach simultaneously, overwhelming the guards before they could mount a defense. The accountants would surrender immediately. They weren't soldiers, just numbers guys who didn't get paid enough to die for the Rossi family. He counted down on his fingers. 3, 2, 1. They breached. Everything happened in compressed time. Colin's team flooded the room from both directions, weapons raised, shouting commands. The accountants threw up their hands immediately, stumbling backward. 3 of the guards reached for weapons, but froze when they saw 5 guns already pointed at them. Professional. They knew when they were outmatched. The 4th guard was either braver or stupider than his colleagues. He grabbed for his pistol, bringing it up fast, finger already on the trigger. Cullen shot him in the shoulder before he could fire, spinning him around and dropping him to the floor. Not a kill shot. Controlled. Precise. "Anyone else?" Cullen asked quietly. "Or are we done with the heroics?" The remaining guards raised their hands. 12 minutes later, they were back outside. The guards were secured, the accountants were locked in a bathroom, and $3 million in Rossi cash was burning in an industrial barrel in the alley. They'd left one guard conscious specifically to relay the message. This is what happens when you hit Kovac operations. We hit back harder. No one had died. Mission accomplished. "Clean operation," Dmitri said as they drove away from the scene. "Father will be pleased." Cullen wasn't so sure. Alexei wanted blood, wanted bodies, wanted fear. A bloodless raid might look like weakness to him, but Cullen had done what needed to be done without creating a massacre that would demand immediate retaliation. Sometimes discipline was more powerful than violence. He dropped his team at the safe house, then drove alone back to his apartment. It was almost 7 o'clock. Otto would be closing the bakery soon, heading home to her quiet little studio apartment where the worst thing she'd face tonight was deciding what to make for dinner. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but instinct made him pick up. "Colin Kovac?" A male voice, unfamiliar, careful. "Who's asking?" "Someone with information you need. About Ara Matsui." Every muscle in Colin's body went rigid. He pulled over immediately, focusing completely on the call. "Talk." "You hit our money house today. Very impressive, very restrained, almost like you were trying to avoid escalation." The voice paused. "But see, my employers don't appreciate restraint. They appreciate strength. And they've decided that if you want to play games with money, maybe we should play games with something you value more." Ice flooded Kalen's veins. "If you touch her, we're not going to touch her. Yet. This is a courtesy call. A warning. You have a choice, Mr. Kovac. You can continue this little relationship with your baker, and we'll use her to hurt you in ways that make burning money look gentle. Or you can walk away from her completely, and she stays safe and ignorant of this whole world. Your decision. You have 24 hours. The line went dead. Cullen sat in his car, hands gripping the steering wheel hard enough to make his knuckles white. They knew. The Rossis knew about Ara, which meant they'd been watching him as carefully as he'd been watching their operations, which meant his father had been right. Getting involved with her had created a weakness that enemies could exploit. He should have listened, should have stayed away, should have let her remain a beautiful stranger he admired from a distance instead of pulling her into his orbit where she could be used as leverage. But it was too late now. She was already a target. Walking away wouldn't change that. If anything, it would make things worse. She'd be vulnerable and unprotected, with no idea why people might want to hurt her. No. The only way to keep Ara safe was to keep her close, to surround her with protection, to make it clear that harming her would bring down consequences that made today's raid look like mercy. He needed to see her, needed to make sure she was okay, needed to put eyes on her before paranoia drove him insane. Kalen drove to Fifth Avenue faster than he should have, his mind running through worst-case scenarios. The bakery was just closing when he arrived. Through the window, he could see Ara wiping down the counter, humming to herself, completely unaware that she'd just been threatened by one of the most dangerous crime families in the city. He waited until she locked up and started walking toward the bus stop. Then he pulled alongside her, rolling down the passenger window. "Need a ride?" She jumped, then laughed when she saw him. "You scared me. I thought you were some creep." "I might be." "You're definitely a creep, but you're my creep, so I'll allow it." She climbed into the passenger seat, bringing the smell of fresh bread and vanilla with her. "What are you doing here? I thought you had business." "I did. It's handled. Now I'm here." She studied his face, her expression shifting from playful to concerned. "Something's wrong. What happened?" He wanted to tell her everything. Wanted to explain about the warehouse and the raid and the phone call that had just turned his world upside down. But dragging her deeper into his reality would only put her in more danger. "Just a long day," he said instead. "Wanted to see you." "Well, I'm glad you did. I was going to text you anyway." She pulled out her phone. "Sophie's throwing a party this weekend. Nothing fancy, just friends and drinks. She's been asking about you since our date, and I thought maybe you'd want to come. Meet some people from my normal, boring, non-criminal life? The invitation was so perfectly innocent, so completely divorced from the violence and threats that defined his day, that Kalin almost laughed. "I'd like that," he said, even though he knew it was a terrible idea. Even though bringing him into her social circle would only create more connections that enemies could exploit. "Really? You don't strike me as a party person." "I'm not, but I want to be there if you're there." She smiled, leaning over to kiss his cheek. "You're sweet when you want to be. Terrifying, definitely, but sweet." He drove her home, walked her to her door, and waited while she unlocked it. She turned to him in the doorway, backlit by the warm light from her apartment. "Do you want to come up?" More than anything, but he'd already brought too much darkness to her doorstep today. "I can't tonight, but soon." "Promise?" "Promise." She kissed him then, soft and lingering, and for a moment Kalin let himself forget about warehouses and money houses and threats made by faceless voices on phones. For just a moment, he was only a man kissing the woman he loved. When she pulled away, her eyes were searching his face. "You're keeping something from me." "Yes. Is it bad?" "It might be. I'm handling it." "Will you tell me when you can?" "If I can." She nodded, accepting the answer even though it clearly bothered her. "Be careful, Kalin. Whatever this is, whatever you're dealing with, just be careful. Always." He left before he could change his mind, before he could pull her close and confess everything. The drive back to his apartment took forever and no time at all. His phone rang twice. Mikhail checking in, then his father demanding a debrief. Kalin ignored both calls. At home, he poured 3 fingers of whiskey and stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Somewhere out there, the Rossi family was planning their next move. Somewhere out there, his father was plotting escalation. And somewhere out there, Aramatsui was brushing her teeth and getting ready for bed, completely unaware that she'd become a piece on a chessboard she didn't even know existed. Kalin pulled out his phone and made a call to Viktor Sokolov, the same man he'd been supposed to kill the day he first saw Ara. "I need a favor," Kalin said when Viktor answered. "Personal security. Best people you have. Surveillance and protection for a civilian. Money's no object." "How soon?" "Tonight. I'll send you the details." "Consider it done." He hung up and made 3 more calls, assembling a protection detail that would shadow Ara without her knowledge. Former military, trained in close protection, loyal only to money and the fear of what Kalin would do if they failed. They'd watch her apartment, follow her to work, keep eyes on her every moment she was vulnerable. It wasn't perfect. Nothing about this situation was perfect, but it was the best he could do without pulling her completely out of her life and into his, which would only paint a bigger target on her back. His father called again. This time, Kalin answered. "You ignored my previous calls," Alexei said coldly. "I was busy." "Too busy for family?" "This is becoming a pattern, Kalin." The raid went perfectly. 3 million in Rossi cash destroyed, minimal casualties, clean exit, message sent. "I know, I've already heard from Dante. He's furious." Alexei sounded pleased, but he's also confused. He swears he didn't authorize the hit on our warehouse. That stopped Kalin cold. "What?" "Dante claims the warehouse attack wasn't sanctioned by him, says it must have been rogue elements in his organization acting without approval. He's launching an internal investigation." "Do you believe him?" "I don't know what to believe anymore, but it raises interesting questions. If Dante didn't order the hit, who did? And why make it look like a Rossi operation?" "Someone trying to start a war between our families," Kalin said slowly. "Someone who benefits from us destroying each other. That's my thought as well. Which means we have a third player on the board, someone clever enough to manipulate both families." Alexei paused. "I'm calling a meeting with Dante, tomorrow night, neutral ground. We need to figure out who's playing us before the situation gets completely out of control." "I'll be there?" "Good. And Kalin? About our conversation last night, I was harsh. The pressure of leadership sometimes makes me forget that even you need personal connections. If this woman makes you happy, I won't interfere, as long as she doesn't compromise your loyalty to this family." The unexpected concession caught Kalin off guard. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just be smart about it. Keep her separate from our business. Don't let her become a liability. Too late for that, Kalen thought. But he said, understood. After hanging up, he finished his whiskey and tried to piece together the puzzle. If Dante didn't order the warehouse hit, who did? What organization had the resources and audacity to attack both the Kovac and Rossi families while making it look like each was attacking the other? The answer came to him at 2 in the morning, when he was too exhausted to sleep but too wired to rest. There were other families in the city, smaller operations that had been squeezed out as the Kovac and Rossi empires expanded, organizations that would benefit enormously if the two largest families went to war and destroyed each other, leaving a power vacuum for someone else to fill. He needed to talk to Mikhail. His brother answered on the first ring, sounding as awake as Colin felt. Can't sleep either? I think I know who's behind this, the Calabrese family. Mikhail was quiet for a moment, processing. They're too small to take us on directly. Exactly. So they're being smart about it, hitting us, making it look like the Rossis, hitting the Rossis, making it look like us, letting us tear each other apart while they stay out of the line of fire. It makes sense, Mikhail admitted. They've been losing territory to both families for years. They'd love nothing more than to see us destroy each other. We need proof before the meeting with Dante. Something concrete we can show him that the real enemy isn't across the table. I'll start making calls, shake some trees, see what falls out. Mikhail paused. How's your girl? Safe, for now. You assigned protection? How did you? Never mind. Yes, round-the-clock surveillance. Good, because if the Rossis know about her, the Calabrese family might too, and they've proven they're willing to play dirty. The thought made Kalen's blood run cold. I'm increasing her detail. 6 people instead of 4. Kalen, at some point you're going to have to tell her what's happening. You can't protect someone from threats they don't know exist. I'll tell her when I have to, not before. Your funeral. They hung up, and Colin spent the rest of the night researching the Calabrese family. By dawn, he had a working theory and enough circumstantial evidence to make it plausible. Now he just needed hard proof. At 6:30, he texted Ara, "Good morning. Thinking about you." She responded immediately. "Good morning. Early start today. Mrs. Chen is teaching me her secret cinnamon roll recipe. Very exciting baker news." He smiled despite everything. "Sounds dangerous. Don't reveal any trade secrets. My lips are sealed. See you later?" "Definitely." He drove to Fifth Avenue at 7:15, his protection detail already in place, 2 operatives in a parked car across the street, 1 in the coffee shop next door, 3 more rotating through the neighborhood on foot. Otto would never spot them. They were too good. But Colin could. And knowing they were there made it easier to breathe. When he walked into the bakery, Otto greeted him with a smile that could light cities. "Right on time. I saved you something." She produced a cinnamon roll that looked perfect. Fresh from the oven. "Mrs. Chen says if you don't eat this one, I'm forbidden from dating you." Those are high stakes. The highest. She takes her baking very seriously. Cullen accepted the pastry and, under Otto's expectant gaze, took a bite. The taste exploded across his tongue. Sweet, rich, perfectly balanced, everything a cinnamon roll should be. "Well?" Otto asked. "It's perfect. Right? I told you she's a genius." Otto leaned against the counter, her expression softening. "You look tired. Rough night?" "Just a lot on my mind. Anything I can help with?" "You already are. Just being here helps." She blushed, playing with the edge of her apron. "That's very smooth. You're getting better at this romance thing." "I have good motivation. Flattery will get you everywhere." She glanced toward the back room where Mrs. Chen was working. "Listen, about the party this weekend, you really don't have to come if you're not comfortable. I know meeting people isn't your thing. I want to meet your friends. I want to know the people who are important to you. Even though they're going to interrogate you mercilessly, Sophie's already preparing questions. She's very protective. I can handle interrogation." "I don't doubt that." Otto's smile faded slightly. "But seriously, if this is too much too fast, tell me. I don't want to pressure you into playing normal when your life is anything but. Being with you is the most normal thing in my life. Everything else is," he gestured vaguely, "background noise." Dangerous background noise. Sometimes, but you make it worth navigating. She came around the counter and kissed him, quick and sweet, apparently unconcerned that customers might walk in. When she pulled back, her eyes were serious. Promise me something? If I can. Promise that if things get too dangerous, if being with me puts you at risk or vice versa, you'll tell me. No heroic protecting me from the truth nonsense, just honesty. The irony of the request, given that he was already protecting her from multiple truths, wasn't lost on him. I promise, he lied. Because sometimes love meant lying. Sometimes it meant carrying burdens alone so the person you loved could sleep peacefully. Sometimes it meant becoming exactly the kind of man you swore you'd never be, all in service of keeping one person safe. The bell above the door chimed. A customer walked in. Middle-aged woman looking for her morning coffee. Otto squeezed Kaylin's hand once, then returned to work mode, all professional smiles and efficiency. Cullen finished his cinnamon roll, watching her interact with the customer, and made a silent vow. Whatever was coming, war with the Rossis, manipulation by the Calabrese, threats from unknown enemies, he would handle it. He would keep Otto safe. He would protect this small pocket of normalcy and light in his otherwise dark existence, even if it cost him everything else. He left the bakery, nodded subtly to his protection detail, and drove to the family estate for the meeting with Dante Rossi. Time to find out who was really pulling the strings. Time to end this before the next attack hit closer to home. Time to prove that Colin Kovac could be ruthless and protective in equal measure. That he could navigate two worlds, the brutal empire he'd inherited and the gentle life he wanted to build with Ara. The meeting was set for 8 o'clock that night, and Colin spent the intervening hours gathering evidence and building his case. By the time he walked into the neutral warehouse where both families had agreed to convene, he had names, dates, and enough proof to shift the war from the Rossis to its rightful target. But as he entered the building and saw the assembled forces, his father's men on one side, Dante's on the other, weapons barely concealed and tension thick enough to choke on, Colin realized something crucial. Peace was fragile. Violence was easy, and somewhere in this city someone was counting on both families to choose the easy path. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Dante Rossi looked exactly like a man who'd built an empire through calculated violence. Silver-haired and sharp-eyed, he sat across the table from Alexei with the posture of someone who'd survived 3 decades in a business where most men didn't last 3 years. His daughter Valentina stood behind him, her face unreadable, while 4 of his most trusted captains flanked the exits. The warehouse was cavernous and cold, lit by harsh fluorescent lights that turned everyone's skin sallow. Mikhail stood at Alexei's right hand, Colin at his left. The Kovac captains mirrored the Rossi positions, everyone armed, everyone tense, everyone waiting for the first sign that this meeting would dissolve into bloodshed. "Let me be clear," Dante began, his accent thicker than his daughter's. "I did not authorize the attack on your warehouse. Someone in my organization acted without permission, and I've spent the last 48 hours finding out who." "And?" Alexei's voice was ice. "And I found them. 3 soldiers who thought they could start a war and profit from the chaos. They won't be starting anything else." Dante's expression made it clear what had happened to the 3 soldiers. "I came here in good faith to say I had no knowledge of their actions. The alliance still stands, if you're willing to overlook this transgression." "Overlook 3 of my men being murdered?" Alexei leaned forward. "You expect me to believe rogue elements just happened to hit my most valuable warehouse at the exact moment our alliance was being questioned? I expect you to believe the truth. But if you'd rather believe I'm lying, we can settle this the old-fashioned way right now." The temperature in the room dropped. Hands moved closer to weapons. Colin caught Mikhail's eye, saw his brother's minute head shake. "Not yet. Don't let this explode yet." "There's a third option," Kalin said, his voice cutting through the tension. Both patriarchs turned to look at him. "One where neither of you authorized anything, and someone else has been playing us both." "Elaborate," Dante said. Kalin pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "For the past week, I've been tracking unusual activity. Weapons purchases that don't match either family's usual suppliers. Cash movements through shell companies that connect to neither of our organizations, and surveillance footage from the night before your club was hit." He opened the folder, revealing a series of photographs. These 3 men were seen casing the location 12 hours before the attack. None of them are Kovac soldiers, but all 3 have connections to the Calabrese family. Dante studied the photos, his expression darkening. Marco Calabrese. That ambitious bastard. He's been losing territory to both of us for years, Callan continued. His protection rackets are getting squeezed out. His drug distribution is getting undercut. He's desperate. And desperate men do desperate things. Like start a war between the 2 largest families in the city, Mikhail added. Let us destroy each other while he swoops in to claim whatever's left. Alexei took the folder, flipping through the evidence with practiced efficiency. This is circumstantial, suggestive but not conclusive. I have more, Cullen said. I've been interrogating some of Calabrese's lower-level guys, the ones who are smart enough to see the writing on the wall. They confirmed that Marco has been planning this for months. Hit the Kovac family, make it look like the Rossis, hit the Rossis, make it look like us. Sit back and watch the fireworks. Why should we believe anything your people tell you? One of Dante's captains challenged. Could be fabricated to deflect blame. Could be, Kalin agreed. Except I also have financial records showing Marco made a very large payment to your 3 rogue soldiers 2 weeks before they hit our warehouse. Care to explain why Calabrese money would be in Rossi pockets? That landed like a bomb. Dante's face went through several emotions before settling on cold fury. Show me. Kalin produced another set of documents, bank transfers, wire receipts, a paper trail that connected the Calabrese family's money to the 3 Rossi soldiers who'd attacked the warehouse. It was circumstantial, yes, but compelling. And more importantly, it gave both families someone else to blame. Dante studied the evidence for a long moment, then looked at his daughter. Valentina, your assessment? It makes sense, she said carefully. Marco's been agitating for more influence in the commission meetings. He's complained openly about being squeezed out by the alliance, and he's reckless enough to think he could pull this off. Or smart enough, Mikhail corrected. This plan almost worked. We were hours away from total war. Almost, Alexei repeated, his gaze fixed on Kalin. But my son stopped it by thinking instead of reacting, by investigating instead of retaliating blindly. There was something in his father's voice that Kalin hadn't heard in years. Pride, maybe, or respect. The question now is what we do about Marco Calabrese. We crush him, Dante said flatly. Together. Send a message that manipulating our families has consequences. Agreed, Alexei said. But carefully. If we come at him too hard, we risk looking like bullies. Other families might unite against us out of fear. Then we need to be smart about it. Dante gestured to the evidence. We expose what he did. Show the other families proof that he tried to start a war through deception. Let them see him for the snake he is. Then when we move against him, it's not aggression, it's justice. The 2 patriarchs looked at each other across the table, and some understanding passed between them. A temporary alliance forged not out of affection, but out of mutual interest. They both had more to gain by cooperating than by fighting. The wedding, Dante said suddenly. We should move forward with it, soon. Show the city that our alliance is stronger than ever. Kalin's stomach dropped. He'd been so focused on preventing war that he'd forgotten about the marriage arrangement that hung over his head like a guillotine blade. How soon? Alexei asked. A month. Big ceremony. Public. Make it a statement. Valentina's expression flickered with something that might have been resignation or relief. Kalin caught her eye, and she gave him the smallest shrug. They'd talked about this. A marriage of convenience, separate lives. It was business. But that was before Ada. Before Colin had tasted what real connection felt like. Before he'd spent mornings in a bakery watching someone hum while they worked and felt his frozen heart start to thaw. Colin? His father's voice pulled him back. Do you have any objections? Every part of him wanted to scream yes, wanted to stand up and announce that he was in love with someone else, someone who had nothing to do with empires and alliances and arranged marriages, someone who made him want to be better than the monster his family had raised. But doing that would paint a target on Ara's back that no amount of protection could erase. If the Rossis knew he cared more about her than the alliance, they'd use her as leverage. If his father knew she was more than a casual distraction, he might eliminate her as an obstacle. And if the Calabrese family or any other enemy learned about her, she'd become the easiest way to hurt him. No objections, Callan heard himself say. A month is fine. Valentina's eyes held sympathy. She understood. They were both trapped by the same obligations, sacrificing personal desires for family power. The meeting continued for another hour, hammering out details. How they'd expose Calabrese, how they'd coordinate their response, how the wedding would be structured. Callan participated mechanically, his mind elsewhere, trying to figure out how to tell Aura that he was engaged to someone else, that he'd promised her honesty but was about to marry another woman for political gain. There was no good way to have that conversation. When the meeting finally ended, both families filed out in opposite directions, maintaining careful distance even as they'd agreed to cooperate. Callan was halfway to his car when Valentina caught up with him. "We need to talk," she said quietly. They moved away from the others, finding privacy in the shadow of a shipping container. Up close, Valentina looked tired. The polished facade she maintained in public showed cracks around the edges. "You love her," she said. Not a question. "Yes." "The baker. Ara." Cullen's blood went cold. "How do you know her name?" "Because I'm not an idiot, and neither are the people my father employs. We've been watching you, Callan, trying to figure out if you were committed to this alliance or just playing along. We saw you with her, multiple times. If you hurt her, relax. I'm not going to hurt her. I don't care who you sleep with as long as you show up for the wedding and play your part in public." Valentina crossed her arms. "But you need to understand something. The moment we're married, she becomes a liability. Our enemies will use her against you. Hell, our own families might use her against you if they think it'll ensure your loyalty. I have protection on her. Protection isn't enough. Not in this world." Valentina's expression softened slightly. "Look, I get it. I have someone too. A man my father would never accept. We've been seeing each other for 2 years, and I've had to keep it secret because being with me puts him in danger, so I understand the impossible position you're in. Then what do I do? You make a choice. Either you walk away from her completely, cut all ties, make her forget you exist, or you find a way to insulate her from our world so thoroughly that touching her would be suicide for anyone who tried. How? I don't know, but you'd better figure it out fast because in 1 month you're marrying me, and after that the stakes get exponentially higher." She walked away, leaving Callan alone with thoughts that spiraled into darker and darker territory. He could walk away from Ara, disappear from her life, let her think he was just another guy who'd lost interest. She'd be hurt, but she'd be safe. She could move on, find someone normal, live the peaceful life she deserved. But the thought of that, of never seeing her smile again, never hearing her laugh, never feeling her hand in his, it was unbearable. Worse than any physical pain he'd endured, worse than death, which left option 2. Find a way to protect her so completely that she became untouchable. Cullen spent the drive home thinking through possibilities. He could relocate her, get her out of the city entirely, set her up somewhere safe where his enemies couldn't reach her. But that would mean taking her away from her mother, her friends, the bakery she loved. It would mean destroying her life to save it. He could bring her completely into his world. Tell her everything, marry her instead of Valentina, make her part of the Kovac family officially. But that would turn her into a mob wife, a target for every enemy family, a prisoner in a gilded cage. She'd hate it. She'd hate him. Or he could do what he'd been doing, maintain the relationship secretly while building layers of protection around her, keep her separate from his family business while ensuring she was watched, guarded, defended. It was risky. It was probably impossible long term, but it was the only option that let her keep being herself. His phone rang. Dmitri. "We have a problem, boss." Kalen's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "What kind of problem?" "Your girl's bakery. Someone just tried to break in. Happened about 20 minutes ago after closing. Our guys spotted him jimmying the back door and intercepted." "Is Ara there?" "No, she left on time. Went home. She's safe. But the guy we caught, he's Calabrese. Low-level soldier, but definitely theirs. Don't let him leave. I'm on my way." Cullen changed direction, heading toward Fifth Avenue with his heart in his throat. The Calabrese family was moving faster than expected. They'd already identified Aura as a pressure point, which meant Marco knew exactly how to hurt Kalen where it mattered most. The bakery looked normal from the street. Lights off, door locked, no signs of disturbance. But in the alley behind the building, Callan found 3 of his protection detail standing over a man on his knees with his hands zip-tied behind his back. The would-be intruder was young, maybe 25, with the kind of cheap bravado that got soldiers killed in this business. "Talk," Callan said, crouching in front of him. "Who sent you?" "Nobody. I was just—" Callan hit him. Not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to clarify the situation. "Wrong answer. Try again." The soldier spat blood. "Fuck you." "Okay, we can do this the hard way." Cullen stood, nodding to Dmitri. "Take him to the warehouse, the old one on Pier 7. Get me a name." Wait! The soldier's bravado cracked. Marco Calabrese sent me. He said to check out the bakery, see if there was anything worth using as leverage." "Leverage against who?" "I don't know, man. He just said scout the location and report back." "What else did he tell you?" "Nothing. I swear. He's planning something big, but he doesn't tell us foot soldiers the details. We just follow orders." Callan studied him for a long moment, then made a decision. "Let him go." Dmitri looked surprised. "Boss?" "Cut him loose. Give him a message to take back to Marco." Cullen leaned close to the soldier, his voice dropping to something cold and final. "You tell Marco Calabrese that Sunrise Breads is off limits. You tell him that anyone who comes near this place, anyone who even looks at it wrong, will answer to me personally. You tell him that some targets aren't worth the consequences. You understand?" The soldier nodded frantically. "Good. Now get the fuck out of here before I change my mind." They cut the zip ties and the soldier ran, practically falling over himself to escape. Cullen watched him disappear into the night, then turned to his team. "Triple the detail on Ara. I want someone watching her every second. I want cameras on every approach to her apartment and this bakery. I want to know if a stray cat crosses her path. Am I clear?" "Crystal," Dmitri said. "But boss, this is getting expensive and complicated. Maybe it's time to—" "I didn't ask for advice. I gave you orders." Dmitri held up his hands in surrender. "Understood." Cullen inspected the back door of the bakery. The soldier had barely started working on the lock before being intercepted. No damage. Nothing Otto would notice. He could keep this from her, add it to the growing list of threats she didn't know existed. He should tell her. Valentina was right about that. Keeping Otto in the dark wasn't protecting her. It was just making her vulnerable in different ways. But tomorrow. He'd tell her tomorrow. Tonight, he just needed to make sure she was safe. He drove to her apartment building and parked across the street, watching the light in her third-floor window. She was home. She was safe. His protection detail was in position. Everything was under control. His phone buzzed. A text from Ada. "Are you okay? You've been quiet today." He stared at the message, then at her window, then back at the message. She was worried about him. While he was sitting outside her building like a stalker, coordinating a small army to keep her safe from threats she didn't know existed, she was worried about him. "I'm fine," he typed back. "Just thinking about you. Good thoughts, I hope. Always. Want to come over? I made too much dinner and could use company." Everything in him wanted to say yes, to go up there and sit at her small table and eat her cooking and pretend for a few hours that they were normal people with normal problems. But he'd just sent a message to the Calabrese family by letting that soldier go. Marco would hear about it. He'd know Aura mattered to Colin, and that knowledge would make her an even bigger target. Until Colin dealt with Marco permanently, being near Aura was putting her in danger. "Can't tonight," he wrote. "Soon, though. I promise." "You keep saying that." "I know. I'm sorry. It's okay. I miss you, though." The words hit him harder than they should have. "I miss you, too." "Okay. Get some sleep. You sound stressed." "I will. Good night, Ada." "Good night, Colin." He sat in his car for another hour, watching her window until the light finally went out. Then he drove home, poured whiskey he didn't drink, and started planning how to eliminate Marco Calabrese without starting a gang war that would consume the entire city. The next 3 days were a masterclass in controlled violence. Colin and Mikhail coordinated with the Rossi family to gather evidence of Marco's manipulation. They found more witnesses, more financial trails, More proof that the Calabrese family had orchestrated the attacks on both the Kovac and Rossi operations. Then they called a commission meeting. The commission was an informal council of the city's major crime families, a way to resolve disputes and maintain order without constant bloodshed. It met irregularly, usually in response to crises. This qualified. 7 families attended, each sending their patriarch or a trusted representative. The Kovac and Rossi families presented their evidence together, a united front that made several of the smaller families nervous. When you saw the 2 biggest powers cooperating instead of competing, it meant someone was about to get crushed. Marco Calabrese sat through the presentation with increasing panic on his face. He denied everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. Wire transfers, witness testimony, surveillance footage. By the end, even his own captains were edging away from him. The commission recognizes, Alexei said formally, that Marco Calabrese attempted to manipulate the Kovac and Rossi families into mutual destruction through deception and false flag attacks. The recommended response is removal of Calabrese leadership and redistribution of their territory among the commission families. Seconded, Dante said. The vote was unanimous. Marco was finished. His captains surrendered immediately, pledging loyalty to whoever took over their operations. Marco himself tried to run and made it approximately 20 feet before Colin's people caught him. Please, Marco begged when they dragged him back into the room. I was just trying to survive. You were squeezing me out. I had no choice. You had a choice, Colin said quietly. You chose poorly. Marco was executed in the same warehouse where the commission had met. Quick, professional, a bullet to the back of the head. Colin didn't pull the trigger himself. That honor went to one of Marco's own former captains, sending a message about loyalty and consequences. The Calabrese territory was divided up. The commission was satisfied. The immediate threat was eliminated. Colin should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt empty, because he'd just spent 3 days orchestrating a man's death while lying to Ara about where he was and what he was doing, because he was getting married in less than a month to someone he didn't love, while the woman he did love waited patiently for him to make time for her, because his 2 worlds were colliding in ways he couldn't control. That night, he finally went to see her. It was almost midnight when he knocked on her door. He knew she'd be asleep, knew he was being selfish by waking her, but he needed to see her face, needed to remember why he was trying so hard to keep both worlds from destroying each other. Ara opened the door in pajamas, her hair messy from sleep, confusion giving way to concern when she saw him. Colin, what's wrong? Can I come in? Of course. She stepped aside, then locked the door behind him. Are you okay? You look... He kissed her, hard and desperate and full of everything he couldn't say. She made a surprised sound, then melted into him, her hands coming up to grip his shirt. They stayed like that for a long moment, holding on to each other like drowning people, holding on to driftwood. When they finally broke apart, Ara's eyes were wide. What was that for? I needed to see you. I've been dealing with work stuff, and it's been consuming everything, and I needed this. You. Us. She guided him to the couch, her hand warm in his. Talk to me. What's happening? I can't tell you specifics, but things are complicated right now, dangerous, and I'm trying to navigate it all without... He stopped. Without getting you killed, without losing you, without destroying everything good I've found. Without what? Without losing myself in the process. She cupped his face in her hands, making him look at her. You're scaring me a little bit. This is more than just stress. Something's really wrong. I'm getting married. The words came out before he could stop them, before he could soften the blow or explain the context. They just landed between them like a grenade. Ara's hands dropped. What? In 3 weeks, to Valentina Rossi. It's arranged. For business. To unite our families and prevent a war. She stood up, putting distance between them. You're engaged, and you're telling me this now. After everything. It's not what you think. Not what I think. Colin, you asked me out. You told me you wanted to be with me. You've been coming to the bakery for months, and now you're saying you're marrying someone else in 3 weeks? Her voice was rising, disbelief giving way to anger. What exactly am I supposed to think? That it's business, that it doesn't mean anything, Valentina and I have an understanding. We're both in love with other people. The marriage is just political theater. Political theater? Ada laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what I am to you? The side piece you keep around while you play Empire with someone else? No, you're everything. You're the only real thing in my life. Then why are you marrying her? Because if I don't, people die. Families go to war, the city burns, and you— He stood, closing the distance she'd created. You become a target for every enemy I have. Being connected to me officially, being someone I choose over family obligations, that paints a bullseye on your back that I can't protect you from. So you're marrying someone else to protect me? She shook her head. That's the most twisted logic I've ever heard. It's the only option that keeps you alive and lets me stay in your life. Maybe I don't want to be in your life if this is what it looks like. She was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. Maybe I don't want to be the secret you keep while you build a life with someone else. Maybe I deserve better than being protected from the truth like I'm some fragile thing that can't handle reality. You do deserve better. You deserve someone normal who can give you a normal life. You deserve everything I can't be. But I chose you. I chose you knowing you were dangerous and complicated and involved in things I didn't understand. I chose you anyway, and now you're taking that choice away by making decisions for me. She was right. He knew she was right. But what else could he do? Tell me you don't love me, Ada said suddenly. Tell me this has all been a lie, that you don't actually care, that I'm just a distraction. Tell me that, and I'll let you walk away. But if you love me, if any of this has been real, then you need to figure out how to choose me. Not as a secret, not as something you protect from a distance, but as a partner, as someone who gets a say in her own life. Kellen stared at her, this woman who'd cracked open his chest and found something worth saving, and knew he was at a crossroads. He could lie. Tell her it was all a game, a distraction, nothing serious. Let her hate him, but be safe. Or he could tell her the truth and deal with the consequences. I love you, he said. I've loved you since the first morning I saw you walking down the street, humming like the world wasn't a battlefield. I love that you feed stray cats and help strangers and exist like goodness is actually possible. I love you so much it terrifies me, because loving you makes me vulnerable in ways I never thought I could be. She sobbed once, covering her mouth with her hand. But that doesn't change reality, he continued. I'm still getting married in 3 weeks. I'm still the heir to a criminal empire. I'm still someone whose enemies would use you to hurt me. And I don't know how to fix any of that without putting you in more danger. Then we figure it out together, Ada said. You stop making decisions alone. You stop protecting me from information I need to make my own choices. You trust me to be strong enough to handle your world. You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me, explain it all. The good, the bad, the terrifying. Let me decide if it's worth it instead of deciding for me. So he did. For the next 2 hours, Kellen told Ada everything about the Kovac family business, about the Rossi alliance, about the Calabrese manipulation and the commission and the constant violence that underpinned his entire existence, about the protection detail he'd assigned to her, about the break-in attempt at the bakery, about every threat and every danger and every reason she should run as far from him as possible. She listened without interrupting, her expression cycling through shock and fear and anger and about a dozen other emotions Kalen couldn't name. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Okay, she finally said. Okay? Okay. I understand now. I understand why you thought keeping me in the dark was protecting me. I even understand why you're marrying Valentina. She met his eyes. But here's what you need to understand. I'm not fragile. I'm not some princess who needs rescuing. I grew up poor. My father died when I was 12, and my mother and I survived by being tough and smart and refusing to give up. So don't underestimate me. I'm not— Yes, you are. You're underestimating my ability to handle hard truths. You're underestimating my right to make my own choices, even dangerous ones. She moved closer. I love you too, Colin. And I'm choosing to stay, knowing everything you just told me. So now you have a choice. You can keep trying to protect me from a distance while you marry someone else and we both end up miserable. Or you can trust me to be your partner, really trust me, and we figure out how to navigate this together. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. You just don't want it to be because that would mean giving up control. She took his hands. I'm not asking you to abandon your family or start a war. I'm asking you to stop shouldering everything alone. Let me in. All the way. Let me be part of finding solutions instead of problems you have to solve. Colin looked at their joined hands, then at her face, determined and tear-stained and beautiful, and felt something shift inside him. She was right. He'd been so focused on protecting her that he'd forgotten to trust her, forgotten that love meant partnership, not possession. The wedding is happening, he said carefully. I can't stop that without consequences that put you and others in danger. But maybe we can find a way to make it work, to keep you safe while keeping us together. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. He pulled her close. I'm sorry for lying, for making decisions without you, for all of it. I forgive you this time. But Kaylin, if we're doing this, really doing this, you have to promise me honesty. Even when it's hard. Even when you think lying is protecting me. I promise. They held each other as midnight turned into early morning, and Callan made silent plans. He couldn't stop the wedding, but maybe he didn't have to. Maybe there was a way to marry Valentina publicly while keeping Otto privately, a delicate balance that would require perfect execution and absolute secrecy. It was risky. It was probably impossible. But for her, he'd make it work. He had to. The morning of the wedding arrived with cruel perfection. Clear skies, mild temperature, the kind of day that belonged in fairy tales instead of arranged marriages between crime families. Colin stood in front of the mirror in his childhood bedroom at the family estate, adjusting his tie for the third time while Mikhail watched from the doorway. You don't have to go through with this, his brother said quietly. We could still find another way. There is no other way, not one that doesn't end with people dying. Colin's hands were steady despite everything churning inside him. This wedding stabilizes the alliance, prevents war, keeps Ara safe. Does she know you're doing this today? She knows. We talked about it. She understands. That conversation, 2 weeks ago, had been the hardest of Colin's life. Ara had listened as he explained why the marriage had to happen, how it was the only path that kept both families from tearing the city apart. She'd cried. He'd cried. And then she'd said something that broke and rebuilt him in equal measure. I'll wait, however long it takes. I'll wait. But waiting had a cost. Every day since that night, Colin had watched Ara force smiles at the bakery while her eyes carried a sadness that hadn't been there before. Every night, he'd lain awake wondering if he was asking too much, if loving him was destroying the light that had drawn him to her in the first place. Colin? Mikhail's voice pulled him back. Father's asking for you. Alexei was in his study, standing by the window that overlooked the estate grounds. Outside, workers were setting up chairs for the ceremony. Hundreds of them. Every major family in the city had been invited. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a coronation of sorts. The moment when the Kovac-Rossi alliance became official and unbreakable. You look like a man going to his execution instead of his wedding, Alexei observed. Just nervous. Understandable. Marriage is a serious commitment. His father turned from the window. I wanted to speak with you before the ceremony, to tell you that I'm proud of the man you've become. You handled the Calabrese situation with intelligence and restraint. You've proven yourself worthy of leadership. Thank you. But I also wanted to remind you that leadership requires sacrifice. Personal desires must sometimes be set aside for the greater good of the family. Alexei's gaze was penetrating. You understand what I'm saying? He was talking about Ara. Without naming her, without acknowledging she existed, Alexei was warning Colin to end things, to focus completely on his marriage and his duties. I understand, Kaylin said, which wasn't the same as agreeing. Good, because after today you'll be a husband, a public figure, someone whose actions reflect on both families. There can be no scandals, no distractions, no weaknesses that enemies can exploit. I'll do what's necessary. Alexei studied him for a long moment, then nodded. The ceremony starts in 2 hours. Don't be late. Colin left the study and found Valentina in the estate's garden, smoking a cigarette in her wedding dress. She looked stunning and miserable in equal measure. "Ready for this farce?" she asked, not looking at him. "As I'll ever be. I told Antonio not to come today. Couldn't bear having him watch me marry someone else." She took a long drag. "Did you invite your baker?" "No, she's not here." "Probably for the best. This is going to be hard enough without our actual lovers watching us pledge our lives to each other." Valentina finally met his eyes. "We're really doing this, chaining ourselves together for politics. We don't have to be chained. We can make this work on our terms. Separate lives, separate loves, just partners in public." "That's what I keep telling myself." She stubbed out the cigarette. "But I keep wondering if we're both just cowards, choosing duty over happiness because it's easier than fighting for what we actually want." Before Kalen could respond, an explosion rocked the estate. The blast came from the front gates. Kalen felt it before he heard it. A percussion wave that rattled windows and sent birds screaming from the trees. Then came the sound, a deep, rolling boom that echoed across the grounds. Black smoke billowed into the clear sky. "What the hell?" Valentina started. Gunfire erupted. Automatic weapons, multiple shooters. Colin's training kicked in immediately. He grabbed Valentina's arm and pulled her toward the main house. "Inside, now!" They ran, Valentina's dress billowing behind her as chaos exploded around them. Guests scattered, screaming. Kovac and Rossi's security forces drew weapons and rushed toward the attack. More explosions. More gunfire. The wedding had become a war zone. Colin got Valentina into the house and passed her to Mikhail. "Lock down the estate. Get Father and Dante to the safe room. Don't let anyone in or out until we know who's attacking." "Where are you going?" Mikhail demanded. "To end this." He grabbed a gun from the security armory and headed toward the front of the estate. Bodies littered the driveway. Guards, attackers, people caught in the crossfire. The gate had been completely destroyed by the blast. Through the smoke, Colin could see unmarked vans and armed men pouring through the breach. This wasn't a rival family. This was professional. Military-grade equipment, coordinated assault. Someone had planned this attack to coincide with the wedding, when both families would be vulnerable and gathered in one place. Yuri appeared at Colin's side, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. "We're outnumbered. At least 30 attackers, maybe more. They came prepared for war." "Who are they?" "No idea. No colors, no identifying marks. Just professionals trying to kill everyone." Colin's mind raced. Who benefits from destroying both families? Who would be bold enough to attack a wedding with this much firepower? The answer hit him like ice water. The Calabrese family hadn't died with Marco. Someone had survived, regrouped, and decided that if they couldn't manipulate the families into destroying each other, they'd do it directly. "Fall back to the house," Kalen ordered. "Create a defensive perimeter. We hold until reinforcements arrive." But reinforcements would take time, and the attackers were advancing fast, methodical, and deadly. Kellen coordinated the defense, positioning guards at choke points, trying to slow the assault. Bodies fell on both sides. The estate's manicured gardens became a battlefield. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. Against every instinct, Kalen answered. "Colin Kovac?" A voice he didn't recognize, calm, almost pleasant. "Who is this?" "Someone who wanted you to know that while you're busy defending your wedding, we're visiting your baker." His blood turned to ice. "What?" "Aramatsui, right? Pretty girl. Lives above a bookstore on Fifth Avenue. Currently at home alone, completely unaware that there are 3 men outside her door." A pause. "You can't be in 2 places at once, Mr. Kovac, so choose. Defend your families here or save her there. You have 5 minutes before my men go inside." The line went dead. Colin stood frozen for half a second, mind calculating impossible odds. It would take him 20 minutes to get to Ara's apartment. His protection detail was supposed to be watching her, but if they'd been compromised or pulled away... He called Dmitri. No answer. Called the other members of Ara's protection team. Nothing. They'd either been killed or diverted somehow. Valentina appeared beside him, her wedding dress torn and dirty. "What's happening?" "They have Ara, or they're about to. This whole attack, it's a diversion to pull me away from her." "Then go. We can hold here." "If I leave..." "Go." She grabbed his shoulders. You've been sacrificing everything for duty and family obligation. For once in your life, choose what you actually want. Choose her. We'll survive without you. Kalin looked at the battle raging around the estate, then at Valentina's determined face, and made his choice. He ran. His car was parked behind the house, untouched by the fighting. He drove like the road was on fire, weaving through traffic, running red lights, his mind screaming the entire way. The 5-minute deadline had already passed. They could be inside. They could be hurting her. They could... He forced the thoughts away. Focus. Get there. Save her. Everything else could wait. The drive took 17 minutes. An eternity. When he finally screeched to a stop outside her building, he saw them. 3 men in dark clothing, one picking the lock on the front door, while the other 2 kept watch. Kalin was out of the car before it fully stopped, gun raised. Step away from the door! Step away from the... They turned, reaching for their weapons. Kalin didn't give them the chance. He shot the one at the door first, center mass, clean. The man dropped. The other 2 scattered, returning fire. Bullets splintered the doorframe, shattered windows. Kalin moved like water, using parked cars for cover, putting rounds downrange with surgical precision. The second man went down with a bullet to the leg. The third tried to run and made it 10 feet before Kalin shot him in the back. No mercy. Not today. Not for people who'd come for Ara. He left them bleeding in the street and kicked in the building's front door. Took the stairs 3 at a time. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor. He could hear music playing inside. She was home. She was alive. But he wouldn't breathe until he saw her. He pounded on her door. Ara! It's Kalin! Open up! The music cut off. Footsteps. The door opened, and there she was. Confused, scared, but whole, unharmed. Kalin! What? He pulled her inside, locked and chained the door, then swept the apartment. 1 room, empty, bathroom, clear. No one else was here. She was safe. What is happening? Ara demanded. I heard gunshots outside. Pack a bag. Now. You can't stay here. I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's going on. Someone just attacked my family's estate during the wedding. They also sent men here to hurt you. I need to get you somewhere safe before they send more. Her face went pale. The wedding. You left your wedding to save you. Yes. Now please, pack a bag. We need to move. She grabbed a backpack and started throwing clothes into it, her hands shaking. Are you okay? Were you hurt? I'm fine, but we need to go. There are 3 men outside who won't be bothering anyone again, but others might come. You killed them. Not a question. Yes. She stopped packing and looked at him, really looked at him, at the gun in his hand, at the blood on his jacket that wasn't his, at the man who'd chosen her over everything else. You left your wedding, she said again. You left your family in the middle of an attack to come here. I will always choose you, every time, no matter what it costs. He moved to the window, checking the street. More cars arriving, reinforcements, his people or theirs. He couldn't tell yet. Ara, I need you to trust me. We have to leave, right now. She zipped the bag and took his hand. Where are we going? Somewhere they can't find you, somewhere I can keep you safe until this is over. They made it out through the back exit just as more men arrived at the front. Kalin's protection instinct screamed warnings, but he moved with purpose, getting Ara into his car and driving toward a safe house he maintained in the industrial district. Somewhere off the books. Somewhere even his family didn't know about. His phone exploded with calls. Mikhail, his father, Dante, Valentina. He ignored them all until they were at the safe house, a converted loft with reinforced doors and enough supplies to wait out a siege. Only then did he call Mikhail back. Where the hell are you? His brother demanded. The estate's a war zone. Father's furious. The Rossis think you abandoned them. Is everyone alive? Yes, we beat them back. Turns out there's a whole branch of the Calabrese family we didn't know about. Marco's cousins from the East Coast. They came for revenge and tried to wipe out both families at once. Are they all dead or arrested? Both. The ones who survived are in custody. Police are finally involved now, too many bodies to ignore. But Kalin, you left, during the ceremony, in front of everyone. Father is... I don't care what father is. I'm where I need to be. With her. You chose the baker over the alliance. I chose the woman I love over a political arrangement. There's a difference. Mikhail was quiet for a moment. What happens now? Now I make sure she's safe. Then I deal with the consequences. Father wants to see you, immediately. I've never seen him this angry, Kalen, not even when Victor betrayed us. Tell him I'll come, but not until I know Ara is protected. He hung up and found Ara sitting on the couch, still processing everything. When she looked at him, her eyes were red but dry. You saved my life, she said. You saved mine first. The day I walked into your bakery. You just didn't know it. She stood and moved into his arms. They held each other in the silence of the safe house, and for a moment the world outside ceased to exist. No families, no obligations, no violence, just two people who'd found each other against impossible odds. What happens now? She asked, echoing Mikhail's question. Now I go face my father, and I tell him I'm done living my life according to his rules. You're really going to do that? After everything that happened today? Especially after everything that happened today. I almost lost you, Ara, and in that moment, I realized that nothing else matters. Not the Empire, not the Alliance, not my father's approval. Just you, just us. But the wedding, there won't be a wedding. Not to Valentina. She doesn't want it any more than I do. And after today, I think even the families will see that forcing this alliance through marriage isn't worth it. What will you do instead? I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. He cupped her face in his hands. But I'm done pretending I can live in your world and mine separately. They're going to collide no matter what I do. So I'm choosing to merge them on my terms, with you by my side, if you'll have me. She kissed him then, soft and fierce and full of promise. I'll have you, all of you, the good, the bad, and the terrifying. Even the terrifying parts where my family might disown me and other crime families might target us? Even those parts. We'll figure it out together. She smiled, and it was like seeing the sun after years of darkness. Besides, I've gotten kind of used to having armed guards following me everywhere. Might as well make it official. Despite everything, Kalen laughed. You're incredible. I know. Now go deal with your father before he sends an army to drag you back. I'll be safe here. He didn't want to leave, wanted to stay in this bubble where they were the only two people in the world. But Mikhail was right. He had to face Alexei, had to deal with the consequences of his choice. Before he left, he posted 4 guards outside the safe house with orders to shoot anyone who approached without his authorization. Then he drove back to the estate, rehearsing what he'd say to his father. In the end, no rehearsal could have prepared him. Alexei was waiting in his study, still in his wedding clothes, now stained with blood and dirt. The entire room radiated fury. Mikhail stood in the corner, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Dante Rossi sat in one of the chairs, his face unreadable. Explain, Alexei said, his voice like ice cracking. They threatened Ara. I went to save her. During your wedding, in front of every major family in the city, you abandoned your bride, your obligations, your family, to rescue some baker. Alexei's control was slipping. Do you have any idea what you've done? The Rossis are questioning the alliance. Other families think we're weak, and you... I chose love over politics, Kalen interrupted. And I'd do it again. Love. Alexei spat the word like poison. Love is a luxury for civilians, not for people like us, not for the heir to everything I've built. Then maybe I don't want to be the heir. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Mikhail's eyes went wide. Dante sat forward in his chair. And Alexei looked like he'd been slapped. What did you say? I said maybe I don't want to inherit an empire that requires me to sacrifice the only good thing in my life. Maybe I'm tired of making decisions based on fear and power instead of what's actually right. Cullen met his father's gaze steadily. You built all this through ruthlessness and violence. And yes, it's impressive. Yes, it's powerful, but it's also empty, cold. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life maintaining something that doesn't make me happy. So you'll throw it all away? For a woman? For a woman who makes me want to be better than what you raised me to be? Yes. Alexei moved faster than a man his age should be able to. He grabbed Callan by the collar and slammed him against the wall. I made you. Everything you are, everything you have, you owe to me, and you dare let him go. Dante's voice cut through the rage. Alexei, let your son go. Slowly, Alexei released his grip. Kalin straightened his jacket, not breaking eye contact. If you walk away from this family, Alexei said quietly, you walk away from everything. The money, the protection, the name. You'll be nothing. I'll be free, and I'll have her. That's more than enough. You're a fool. Maybe, but I'm a fool who can look at himself in the mirror. Kalin turned to Dante. I apologize for today, for abandoning the wedding, for any embarrassment this caused your family, but I won't apologize for my choice. Dante was quiet for a long moment, then surprised everyone by laughing. You know what? I respect it. At least you had the balls to choose what you wanted instead of just going through the motions like the rest of us. He stood. Alexei, your son just proved he's not afraid to burn everything down for what matters to him. That's exactly the kind of strength that builds empires, just not the kind you recognize. You're defending his betrayal? I'm saying maybe we've been doing this wrong. Maybe forcing our children into marriages they don't want isn't the way to build lasting alliances. Maybe we should be finding other solutions. Dante looked at Colin. Valentina told me about your baker, about how you've been trying to protect her while still honoring family obligations. That's not weakness. That's trying to do right by everyone, which is impossible in our world. But I admire the attempt. So the alliance, Alexei started, stays intact, just not through marriage. We'll find another way. Business partnerships, joint ventures, shared territories. There are options that don't require sacrificing our children's happiness. Dante moved toward the door. Besides, after today's attack, it's clear we need each other. The Calabrese family had more reach than we thought. Others might too. We're stronger together, with or without a wedding. He left, leaving Kalin and Alexei and Mikhail in heavy silence. Father, Mikhail said carefully, maybe Dante has a point. Maybe... Get out, Alexei said, not taking his eyes off Kalin. Both of you, now. Mikhail grabbed Kalin's arm and pulled him from the study before their father's control broke completely. In the hallway, Mikhail exhaled hard. That went better than expected. Did it? You're still alive. That's better than expected. Mikhail managed a weak smile. So you're really doing this, choosing her over everything? I already did, the moment I left the wedding. Father will never forgive you. I know. And you're okay with that? Kalin thought about Ara waiting for him in the safe house, about mornings in the bakery and her smile and the way she made him feel human instead of monstrous, about having something worth fighting for instead of just fighting. Yeah, he said. I'm okay with that. Over the next month, everything changed. Kalin officially stepped down as heir to the Kovac Empire. Mikhail took his place and proved within weeks that he was better suited for it anyway. The Kovac-Rossi alliance held through business arrangements and mutual interest rather than marriage. Valentina quietly married her lawyer in a private ceremony and sent Kalin a thank you card for giving her the courage to choose her own path. Alexei didn't speak to his son for 3 weeks. When he finally did, it was to offer Kalin a choice. Leave the family completely or stay in a reduced capacity. No leadership role, no major decisions. But still protected. Still family, technically. Kalin chose to stay, but on his terms. He maintained minimal involvement with the business, handling only the logistics side, the parts that didn't involve violence. He used his remaining influence to slowly shift the Kovac Empire toward more legitimate operations. It would take years, maybe decades, but he'd started the process. And through it all, Ara was there. She didn't quit the bakery, refused to hide or change her life. But she accepted the reality of Kalin's world enough to take precautions. The protection details stayed, though reduced. She learned to recognize threats. She understood that loving Kalin meant accepting certain risks. 6 months after the disastrous wedding, Kalin took her to a restaurant, the same one from their first date. She wore the same blue dress. He was just as nervous as before. Why do you look like you're about to face a firing squad? She asked when they sat down. Because I'm about to ask you something, and I'm terrified you'll say no. Kellen, I've survived assassination attempts and crime family politics while dating you. Whatever you're about to ask can't be scarier than that. He pulled out a small box and opened it. The ring inside was simple, a single diamond, elegant and understated. Nothing ostentatious, just beautiful. Marry me, he said. Not for politics or family alliances or any reason except that I love you, and I want to spend every day for the rest of my life watching you hum while you bake and make the world a better place just by existing in it. Ada stared at the ring, tears already forming. You're serious? Completely. I know my world is complicated. I know being married to me won't be easy, but I also know that you're the only person who's ever made me want to be more than what I was raised to be. So yes, I'm serious. Marry me, Ada, please. She was crying now, happy tears that she didn't bother wiping away. On one condition. Anything. When we have kids, you teach them that empire and power aren't as important as kindness and choosing what's right. Deal? His breath caught. Kids. She was already thinking about their future, their family, the life they'd build together. Deal, he managed. Then yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, and for the first time in his life, Colin Kovac felt completely at peace. He'd chosen love over power, chosen partnership over control, chosen a future that looked nothing like what his father had planned. And it was perfect. They married 3 months later in a small ceremony with just their closest friends and family. Alexei attended but didn't speak to Kalin directly. Mikhail stood as best man. Mrs. Chen from the bakery cried through the entire service. And when Kalin and Ada exchanged vows, promising to navigate whatever came together, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. 5 years later, their daughter Sophia was born. 2 years after that, their son Lucas arrived. Kalin had long since transitioned completely out of the criminal side of the family business, focusing instead on legitimate shipping operations. The Kovac empire had evolved, slowly becoming more legal than not, though it still carried the weight of its past. Ara opened her own bakery, 3 locations across the city, all successful, all filled with the warmth and joy she brought to everything. She still hummed while she worked, still fed stray cats, still believed the world was fundamentally good despite everything she'd seen. And Callan became the man she'd always believed he could be. Not perfect, still haunted by his past, still dangerous when his family was threatened, but fundamentally changed by the choice he'd made that day when he left his wedding to save the woman he loved. He taught his children what Ara had asked, that kindness mattered more than power, that choosing what was right was harder, but better than choosing what was easy. That love, real love, was worth fighting for, even when it cost you everything else. On Sophia's 5th birthday, as Kalin watched Ara help their daughter blow out candles while Lucas tried to sneak extra frosting, Alexei appeared at his side. It was the first time his father had visited their home. "You have a beautiful family," Alexei said quietly. "Thank you. I was wrong about love being a luxury we couldn't afford." The admission seemed to cost him. "You were braver than I ever was. You chose happiness. And you've built something here that's more valuable than any empire." Cullen looked at his father. Older now, the fire in his eyes dimmed by time and perhaps regret. "It's not too late. For you to choose something different too." "Maybe. But I'm an old man set in old ways." Alexei watched Sophia laugh as Ada wiped frosting from her nose. "Just promise me you'll protect this. What you've built. The peace you found. Don't let the darkness I taught you destroy what she's given you." "I won't. I promise." Alexei nodded once, then left. It was the closest thing to reconciliation they'd probably ever achieve. And that was okay. Some wounds didn't fully heal, some relationships stayed complicated. But Colin had learned that you could acknowledge the broken parts while still choosing to move forward. That night, after the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, Kalin found Ada on their back porch, looking up at the stars. "Thinking about anything specific?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Just how different our life is from what either of us expected." She leaned back against him. 5 years ago, I was just a baker. You were the heir to a crime empire. And now look at us. Suburban house, 2 kids, parent-teacher conferences and birthday parties and arguments about bedtime. Boring? Perfect. She turned in his arms to face him. We made it, Kaylin. Through everything, the violence, the threats, the impossible choices, we made it to the other side. Together. We did. He kissed her forehead. And I'd go through all of it again if it meant ending up here. With you, with them, with this life we built. Even the part where you had to choose me over your entire family? Especially that part. Because that's when I learned that the family you choose is sometimes more important than the one you're born into. And I chose you, every time, in every way that mattered. She smiled, that same smile that had captivated him from the first morning he'd seen her, and pulled him close. They stood there on their porch under the stars, 2 people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk toward the light together. The Kovac name would continue. The empire would evolve. The city would keep turning with all its violence and beauty and complexity. But for Kalin and Ara, the war was over. They'd found their peace not through power or control, but through the simple radical act of loving each other completely. And in the end, that was the only empire worth building. The one measured in morning coffees and children's laughter and hands held through the difficult moments. The one that couldn't be taken by force or lost to betrayal because it was built on something stronger than fear. It was built on choice, on trust, on 2 people deciding that together was better than anything they could be apart. Years later, when Sophia asked her father about his past, about the man he used to be before he became the dad who made terrible pancakes and told silly stories, Kalin would tell her the truth. That he'd been lost, that he'd lived in darkness and thought it was all there was. Until one morning, he saw someone who lived in the light, and she showed him that there was another way. "What did you do?" Sophia would ask. "I chose her," Kalin would say, looking over at Ara who'd be pretending not to listen. "I chose love over everything else, and it saved my life." "That's very romantic, Dad." "It was very necessary, sweetheart. Because the thing about darkness is that it only wins if you let it, if you keep choosing it. But if you choose the light, if you choose love and kindness and everything good in the world, then the darkness can't touch you. Not really, not where it matters." And on the porch, listening to her husband tell their daughter their story, Ara would smile. Because she'd known from that first morning when a stranger with sad eyes had walked into her bakery and ordered black coffee, that underneath all the darkness was someone worth saving. She'd just never imagined he'd save her right back. But that was love, wasn't it? 2 broken people choosing to be whole together, 2 impossible worlds colliding and creating something better than either could have been alone. It was messy and complicated and sometimes terrifying, but it was theirs, and that made it perfect.